Comment coming in. Looks like we're on Riverside and YouTube. No Twitch. I don't think we have a Twitch for Quantum Leap. Not yet.
My eye has
All right.
one.
So we're just getting started going, and we're going to give it about a minute and make sure everything's good. Are we on YouTube and everything?
Let me look on YouTube. I'll let you know.
Somebody check. Make sure.
It says the Quantum Leap podcast is live. I just got a notification from YouTube.
Sweet.
I'm going to see if I can follow the link from our Insta story.
All right.
Join us live. Visit link. And let's see. The Quantum Leap podcast says live on the thing. So I guess you
Live
just
on
hit
the
the thing that says live and see what happens.
Yeah.
Yep. There we are.
Hey, how you doing?
All right. We're all there.
Right. Nobody in the chat yet, but that's okay. Feel free to come by and chat with us or send chats in the YouTube.
One watching now. I guess that's me.
Yeah, probably. So we'll have people join us along the way. So that'll be a fun surprise. Okay. Should go until about 11 at the latest. And I will start. I'll take a beat and I'll introduce myself.
So what time is that in those of us who don't live in backwards?
It's tomorrow at, I think, noon. I'm not sure.
Oh, so 15 minutes ago.
Yeah, exactly. All right. So I'll introduce myself, then Chris, then Hayden, then Dave. And Dave, when you say who you are, let us know where you're from and stuff. Okay?
Okay.
Sounds good? Okay. Okay. Which show is this? Quantum Leap, right? Okay.
Tis.
Hello, Leapers, and welcome back to the Quantum Leap Podcast. I'm Albie.
I'm Chris.
I'm Freddy Krueger because I'm living the nightmare.
I'm Dave from the Korman Productions Deep Dive TV Podcast.
And we are here because it is the month of Matt. We are reading Quantum Leap Foreknowledge, a novel by Christopher DeFilippis. And we were so lucky, 2 shows in a row, to get the author of this book, the good book, with us. So Chris is joining us. He actually wrote this book, and we're going to be reading, I think it's chapter 6. To what chapter, Chris?
We're going to be reading chapter 6 to chapter, let's see, page 122, which is chapter
The
12.
end of chapter 11.
Yep, the end of chapter 11. So just to give everybody who's reading along at home an indication of how we're doing this, we're going to break it down into four shows, and we're doing about 60 pages per show. So in this case, it breaks down from chapter 6 to 12. If you want to catch up, you can read chapters 1 through 5. And I think we left off in a good place last time. And I'm really looking forward to where we end off on this journey. It's a real cliffhanger when I see the end of the chapter 11. So
did you read it ahead of time, Chris? Are you getting spoiled?
Yeah, I mean, I just couldn't help it. It's just so compelling.
It is. It's good stuff. It's good stuff. Hayden, you mentioned Nightmare on Elm Street. Did you know today was the anniversary, 40th? Or yesterday for you?
I didn't know that, but it must just be, serendipitous.
Serendipity. That's a good movie too. But yeah, Nightmare on Elm Street Part 1 came out.
That's your second child, isn't it? Serenity and Serendipity.
It would have been. Or Malcolm, depending. All right. So the reason we're doing this is we're celebrating our friend Matt Dale. You might remember him as a host from the Quantum Leap Podcast. We lost him last year around Christmas time. And we're just trying to raise some funds for his family. So as we're reading this, feel free to follow the QR code on your screen or just Google Matt Dale GoFundMe, and it'll come right up, and give what you can, and we really appreciate it. All right. And also you can send super chats in, and I'll make sure that his family gets it. And but I recommend doing the GoFundMe because YouTube takes a cut if you do a super chat. So either way, though, nothing is too little. We appreciate all of it. Anything you can do to help Matt's family out along Christmas time. And we're celebrating Matt, and one of Matt's favorite books, because me and him talked about it a lot, because we shared this, was Quantum Leap Foreknowledge, written by Christopher DeFilippis.
It's one of my great regrets is that I never actually discussed my book with Matt because I was waiting to do it on the pod.
He really enjoyed it.
Yeah. So
yeah, he was looking forward to it too. I think we all were, because I think I was even going to guest on that, right?
The more, the merrier.
Exactly. That's how I feel. Oh, speaking of, we have other people that may or may not show up, hopefully soon, to read more chapters. So I'm going to go last.
Because they're late.
I was running late too. I had to make some vegan McRibs for dinner. They were pretty good.
They were really good.
They're really good. All right. So chapter 6. Why don't we start out with the author reading it so we can get in the mood of what it's supposed to be? Does that sound good, Chris?
Yeah, sure.
Chapter 6 of Foreknowledge. Follow along with the good book.
Okay, Chapter 6, Foreknowledge, Chapter 6. When last we left off, Emery was in prison with Evangeline. We learned about Evangeline's past, and Sam was at the Kit Kat Club as a mud wrestler, and he saw a confrontation in a back alley between one of his fellow wrestlers, Tawny, and some strange person who turns out to be Tawny's brother. And we pick up here now. Okay, we'll try that again. Sam hooked his toe behind the alley door and drew it open. He needed both hands to hold Kyle up. He must have given the guy more of a kick than he thought. I forgot to put my glasses on. Let me do that.
They're important. I got mine. I got 3 pair just in case.
Here we go. Okay. He must have given the guy more of a kick than he thought. Red and blue lights penetrated the darkness of the alley, throwing the club's brick wall into staccato relief. What's that? Tawny looked towards the mouth of the narrow passageway. Cops? What are they doing here? There was a little excitement going on before, Sam said. The door slipped away from his foot and slammed shut. Damn, can I have a little help here? Tawny pulled the door open. This night is just full of surprises, isn't it? Well, Sam began, readjusting Kyle's weight and getting his shoulder behind the door. Barringer is at it again, and I don't really care. Tawny turned her attention to her brother. Kyle, you okay? The man's head lolled a bit to the one side. Good. Now, stay out of my life. And you too, she added to Sam. She began to walk away. Wait, Sam called. Aren't you going to give me some help? No. Why don't you two bother each other for a while? Sam sighed. It's just a little back this way, he said, hoisting the man through the short hallway that led to the dressing area. Too bad the girls are gone, Al said. I better look at all the goodies would snap him out of it. Can't you be a little more help? Al gave a cigar pensive puff. Not really. Sam shook his head and lowered Kyle to the floor so he could open the door to the lounge. Then he dragged Kyle into the room and laid the unconscious man on the nearest couch. This is Kyle Singer, Al said, as Sam put the man's legs up. Geez, look at him. He's as Irish as Paddy's pig. What can you tell me that I can't find out by looking myself? Al stopped his study of the man and shifted his attention back to the hand link. He's an investigative report. He whacked the hand link. Reporter. The Observer nodded. Bachelor of Journalism from the University of Missouri in 86. Works for a television station in Paducah, Kentucky now. Mizzou? Sam paused. That's where Katie went to school. He couldn't remember what his sister got her degree in, but he was pretty sure it wasn't journalism. That's where she met Jim, I think. You're right, Al said, continuing his quest for information on Kyle. Sam wished the Observer would elaborate more on Katie. He remembered that Jim Bonnick was her husband and that he was in one of the branches of the military and nothing else. From what Ziggy can find, Al continued, Kyle's doing fairly well making a name for himself. He heads an investigative team that's turned out some pretty solid work. Sam got a wet towel from the bathroom and laid it on Kyle's face. The nosebleed had stopped, but a lump was forming on his cheekbone. What's he doing here? Seems pretty obvious. He's looking for his sister. Think so? Think what? Kyle rolled his head slightly and struggled to sit up. Sam surrendered the towel and took a few steps back. I said I think you're coming around. Sam tried to smile non-threateningly. Kyle swung his feet to the floor and shook his head. Mistake, he groaned, and pressed the cool towel to his face again. Sorry about that, Sam said. I didn't know who you were, and a girl can never be too careful. Neither can a man, apparently, Kyle said, trying to focus on Sam and wipe the tacky blood off his upper lip. Not around you, anyway. And you are... Sarah, Sam replied. Let me see if I can find some ice for that. No, I'll live. Kyle stood to his full lanky height and took a step towards Sam, extending his hand. Kyle Singer. I know. Sam took the man's hand. Tawny told me. Tawny? Your sister. Oh, Kyle shook his head and reeled back a step. You mean Teresa. Tawny. He uttered the word like a curse. I can hear Mom spinning in her grave now. Well, Tawny or Teresa, thanks for sticking up for her. From what I've seen, it looks like she can stick up for herself, Sam said. Well, you probably know better than I would. We haven't seen each other in some time. Kyle sat down, gingerly testing the dark blue knot that was rising under his left eye. Hell, he chuckled. There's irony for you. I've finally found her, and with the way this is swelling, I still won't be able to see her. Bingo, Al quipped. You've been looking for her? Almost 2 years now, Kyle said. I guess it might have been a little quicker. Whoops, let me turn my phone off.
Every time you say Kyle, I think of Cartman saying Kyle, Kyle, Kyle.
Okay. Okay, sorry about that, everybody at home.
No worries.
Okay. So bingo, Alka. You've been looking almost 2 years now, Kyle said. I guess it might have been a little quicker if I knew to look for Tawny. Why haven't you seen her? What happened? That's what I'd like to know. I came home from work one night and she was gone. Left town, left dad, didn't leave a note. Ziggy says dad is Robert Singer, Al chimed in. According to hospital records, mom passed away in 1984 from a heart attack. He growled at the hand link. Ziggy won't give me any more. She just disappeared, Kyle continued. I've been looking for her ever since. Wow, Sam said. Why would she do something like that? I think that would be less of a mystery if you met my father. He's not exactly easy to live with, but that's still no excuse. She was supposed to take care of him until I got finished with school. That was the deal. Something might have happened, Sam tried. With your father, maybe? Kyle shrugged. I don't know, and at this point, I don't really care. She obviously didn't. Well, now that you found her, what are you going to do? Bring her home to Kentucky, of course, Kyle said. I refused to let her do... He furrowed his brow and looked around the small room. No offense, he said to Sam as an afterthought. None taken, Sam said, in a tone that betrayed the lie. He was willing to give Kyle the benefit of the doubt after hearing his side of the story, but he couldn't condone a judgmental attitude, no matter that he probably would have had reacted the same way if he found his own sister working as a mud wrestler. I get the feeling Tawny might not be so forgiving, though, Sam went on. Your attitude will probably make things worse. You got that right, Sam. A hint of disgust tinged the observer's voice. Anyway, you may have that right. Ziggy says Tawny stays here for another week or two, then pulls another vanishing act. This time, it's for good. We may not be able to bet on that, though, not with the case of schizophrenia our obnoxious bucket of microchips seems to have come down with. Kyle barked a laugh. Please, how can things get any worse? I spend all my spare time worrying about and looking for my sister. I finally find her, rolling around topless in the mud, mind you, and she wants nothing to do with me. And then I get decked. I know you're frustrated right now. Sam tried to placate the man, but don't you think it might be better to talk to your sister instead of making demands? Look, Kyle shot back, I don't see how it's any of your business. I mean, who the hell are you anyway? What do you care? A friend? Was all Sam could think to say. Kat walked in and prevented him from saying more. And if the harried way she was adjusting her bustier was any indication of her mood, Sam didn't want to say anything more. He wanted to run. Wow, Alex claimed. She looks just like she did in Revenge of the She-Beast, in that scene where she chews the deputy's nose off. Look out, Sam. Sam stepped backwards as Kat turned his way. Thought you'd hide in here, huh? The question was aimed at Kyle. Well, you have two choices. Get outside where the sheriff is waiting for you, or kick your ass out there for you. Kyle backed up until the wall stopped him. Huh? Kat, wait. Sam stepped between the two. He's not from Behringer's group. Kat peered at Kyle with eyes that held a laser blue intensity. Then who the hell is he? Tawny's brother. Kat shifted her gaze to Sam. Butterflies rose in his stomach, then withered. Tawny's brother? What the hell is he doing here? She cocked her mouth in a wicked grin. Get kicks watching your sister? Kyle took a step forward. Now, just a minute. Not now, Kyle. Sam raised his arms between the two. This had the potential to get very ugly. Not unless you want to be lying on that couch again. He focused on Kat. He's been looking for her, he said. They haven't seen each other for over a year. 2 years, Kyle corrected. How touching, Kat said sarcastically. Look, I don't care if you just found your long-lost teddy bear. My club is closed. Take it up with your sister at her place or come back during business hours. Kyle straightened, raising his chin a bit. I'll be back. He looked questioningly at the exit. Sam nodded. Kyle's long legs carried him out of the room in the space of a breath. Pleasure to meet you, Kat yelled as the door closed. Let's do it again, real soon. She stalked to the couch and sat. From the shape his face is in, I'd say he hasn't figured out when to keep his mouth shut. She lit a cigarette and made an attempt at calm, but with the smoke coming out of her nose, she reminded Sam of a cartoon bull with the matador in her sights. I'm getting too old for this crap. What was he doing here? The room seemed to shrink around Sam as Kat's ire centered on him. He sat next to her and related the events of the evening. Kat chuckled when she heard how Sam had kicked Kyle. Don't feel bad, honey. He's probably had it coming for a long time. Trust me. I don't know, Sam said in Kyle's defense. I'd say he's been through a lot. Even if that's true, it doesn't matter, Kat said. If there's anything I've learned over the years, it's not to get involved in family matters, especially in this business. If I had a dime for all the irate fathers I've faced, I'd have enough to buy Berenger's silence. What none of them ever seems to figure out is that their precious little babies are here for their own reasons that have a lot to do with the fathers in the first place. She took another drag of her cigarette and shook her head. I tried to help the first few times I came up against a situation like this. I really did. But it only ends up bringing more problems, especially when people think you're meddling in their personal lives. Sam nodded. He knew the feeling all too well. It was difficult enough to help people face their problems, even when he had the advantage of being perceived as a family member or close friend. It was always hardest when he was almost a total stranger to those he was helping, like on this leap. So let them think Richard and I are evil gypsies roaming from town to town, luring their innocence away. It makes it easier for everyone. Sam wasn't above using a little guilt if it would gain him some help. And from what his gut was telling him, getting Kyle and Tawny reconciled was just as important as keeping the club open. Easier for everyone except the girls caught in the middle, he said. Kat looked sharply at him and was on her feet again. How dare you? When have Richard and I ever been anything but supportive of you or anyone else in this club for that matter? Well, that one blew up in my face. You have to draw a line, Kat continued. If you don't, you have nothing but trouble. She crushed her cigarette into an ashtray, and I have plenty of that at the moment. Sam decided to switch gears. Kyle and Tawny could wait for now. Berenger's got you worried, doesn't he? Kat nodded. At first, I just laughed it off. I mean, who ever takes fanatics like that seriously? We never used to, and they were always crawling around the theaters where our movies were shown. This time, it's not so easy. By the slant of the creases around her eyes and the wrinkles in her forehead, Sam knew Kat was more than just worried. She was downright scared. It made her look older. Did you see that mob? She continued. Sheep and hypocrites. Half those men come in here at least once every 2 weeks. The others didn't have any problems with me until Berenger told them they did. And that rock-throwing bullshit? Someone could have gotten hurt. The anger was creeping back. It's not dying down. It's getting worse. There must be something we can do, Sam said. Some way we can turn it around. People are just reacting out of fear. We need to make them see it for themselves. Fat chance, Kat replied. Everyone has his own reasons for being riled up, and I certainly can't afford to send the whole town to counseling. An idea began tickling the back of Sam's mind. Counseling. I know what to do, he exclaimed. If we can't beat Berenger by making a stand here, then why don't we face him on his own territory? Why don't we take our case to the next town council meeting and let them decide? How could he have been so blind? Back in Elk Ridge, the town council held a lot of clout. It was where all the decisions were made. It had to be the same in this town or Berenger wouldn't be so effective. Let me get this straight, honey. Kat's voice was laden with condescension. The wolf is knocking at the door and you want me to let him in? Did you take one hit too many in the ring tonight? Sam shook his head. Don't you get it? Sooner or later, the whole thing will come down to a council vote. Why not beat Berenger to the punch? It might give us the edge we need. Kat looked hesitant. And if it doesn't work? What do you have to lose? At least this way we'll be putting Berenger on the defensive instead of the other way around. We don't have anything to lose. Richard and I, on the other hand, have sunk a good deal of our savings into this club. If you let this continue the way it is much longer, Sam said softly, you're going to lose it all. If you're going to go down, you might as well go down fighting. Funny, that's the first thing I taught you when you stepped into the ring. There was a glint in Kat's eye that hadn't been there before. You've made your point, but we need to get on the agenda for the next meeting. That should be simple enough. All we need to do is contact the councilman for this district. They can get the ball rolling, schedule a hearing. Even if that turns out to be a wash, there should be time allotted for open remarks at the end of the meeting. When you come down to it, they have no choice but to listen to you if you want them to. Even Berenger. Kat's smile turned predatory. We'll show that bastard. She stalked to the door. I'm going to call the girls right now. We need to plan a strategy. I don't think I'll have much of a problem convincing them to come in on a Sunday. Not if it means a continued paycheck. But here at 11 tomorrow. Be here at 11 tomorrow morning and keep the ideas coming. She winked at Sam and was gone. Sam laughed aloud and looked around for Al to see how his idea had affected the odds. But Al was nowhere in sight. Only then did Sam realize that the observer had been uncharacteristically silent during his entire conversation with Kat. Where had he gone? The imaging chamber door hadn't even opened. He caught the sound of a faint poing. He followed it into the outer hall that led to the club's side door. Al was there, and he looked like he was having a fist fight with the handling. From the scowl on his face, the handling was giving as good as it was getting. What is going on? Al looked up in surprise. Sam, what's going on? Are you in an imaging chamber or an echo chamber? Sam asked in frustration. He thrust his thumb over his shoulder. Did you hear what just went on in there? What does Ziggy say? Al glared at the handling. I can't get her to say anything. I don't know what's going on, but this thing is giving me nothing but gibberish. He took the multicolored unit, producing some unusual... Sorry, I'll say that again. He shook the multicolored unit, producing some unusual squeals. What did you come up with? The town council meeting, Sam said. What will happen if we bring the case before the council? Not a bad idea, Al said. Look, we obviously have a glitch in the system somewhere. I'm sure it's nothing. Let me take care of it, then I'll bring you the odds. It sure doesn't sound like nothing, Sam said. The look on Al's face was starting to worry him. Al hit the glowing buttons in a familiar pattern. Don't worry, we'll take care of it. I'll come back to you as soon as The words died as the glowing white door stopped rising at Al's knees. For the love of Gushy! Open the damn door! Al cocked his head for a beat, his face getting redder. That's it! He got down on his belly and began to squirm into the light. When I get out of here, I'm going to tear that computer a new... The hologram vanished from Sam's vision. He could picture Al squirming. He could picture Al smashing the hand link against the floor in frustration and breaking the neural link. He had a sick feeling in his stomach. He couldn't remember Ziggy ever having problems this serious. Could the cause really be as simple as Al suggested? He hoped it was. What else could he do? I see you've lost your fear of live shots, Ms. Dotorovic. Nancy looked up in surprise at Kyle's mocking tone, then smiled. What the hell happened to your face? Kyle laughed. Same old Nancy. Nice to see you too. I see you're still not one for platitudes. What's this big story they have you chasing down? It's just a routine protest. Kyle hadn't seen his friend in more than 2 years, but he had worked with her enough in school to know she was hedging. What do you mean, a routine protest? Do people in this town often go to jail that easily? He didn't know what was going on, but he smelled a story the second he walked out of the alley and saw the police cars pulling away. Reporting instincts took over. The old bat had accused him of hiding and had mentioned the police. The parking lot was deserted, except for a news crew wrapping up, satellite remote antenna retracting amidst its orange coils into the top of the van, waiting for the promise of another breaking story to arouse it again. When he caught sight of the van's logo, he thanked God and the Alumni Society. The final bit of luck fell into place when he saw Nancy wrapping up her microphone cord. Her uncharacteristic silence and the scowls he was getting from her partner told him it was a bigger story than he had thought. Nancy continued staring at him, eyes widening slightly. He nodded, signaling that he got her message. Not here. Kyle focused on the man giving him dirty looks and smiled insincerely. Kyle Singer, he extended his hand. This is Jerry Brown, Nancy said hurriedly. He works with me at the station. Jerry, Kyle, and I went to school together. Another member of the Mizzou Mafia. Jerry took Kyle's hand, returning the smile with interest. Kyle already hated him. I see they work you to the ground here, just like at my station. What's this, your third story today? Fourth, Nancy said. We were clocking out when the call came in. At least it was a live shot. No crash editing. I don't think you have to worry about that tonight, Kyle laughed. No snow. She could only be referring to the time they were sent to cover a story in Jefferson City during a blizzard, the likes of which only Missouri could produce. On the way back to the station, they'd slid into a ditch. Jerry looked on in confusion, mouth quirking in anticipation of a smile. Neither bothered to let him in on the joke. Kyle found the idiotic look becoming. Old times, Kyle said. When do you think we can catch up on new ones? Nancy's eyes spoke volumes. Monday night's good for me. Kyle nodded. Monday it is. After a quick exchange of phone numbers, they bid one another good night. Kyle's mind raced as he watched the van drive away. He had stumbled onto something huge, at least for the people of this town, and the club was right in the middle of it. Could he use it to persuade Teresa to come home? As much as he hated to admit it, the blonde was right. He needed a new angle. Now that he had a source, finding it would be a bit easier. Research and legwork would take care of the rest. They always did. He stopped thinking like an older brother and started thinking like a journalist. Treat the whole thing like a sticky interview. Circle around and around until you find an opening. Then move in for the kill.
Wow.
Yeah. So that chapter's a little messy, but it introduces Kyle pretty good. The funny thing in that Miss Dotorovic, Nancy, is based on my friend Ivanka Todorovic. And she lives in Chicago now, but we did go to journalism school together. And we did go to cover a story in Jefferson City in a blizzard, and we did slide into a ditch on the way back.
That is so cool. Did you get stuck in a time loop?
I got stuck in a time loop. Yep.
Yeah, I knew that's what they based
you,
Groundhog Day on. That was so cool. I love your descriptive, the way you do it. Like I was picturing the news van with the orange coil around the antenna and everything, and I was like, I'm seeing it in my head just from a few words on the page. How do you do that?
I had to actually rewrite that section a couple of times to make it the way I wanted. So I do it carefully. I do it haphazardly, and then I just edit. Frankly, just thank you everybody for putting up with my read there. I feel like I was reading a little too fast and I was a little too slurry. I'll try to do better on my next chapter.
Well, we got 3 more live streams tonight, so we got to get through it. So no, great job. And I think it's time to mention we are doing a giveaway for people who either comment or donate on these 4 month of Matt live streams for the Foreknowledge book. Tell them what they're gonna win, Christopher. If giveaway, but not a prize.
Not a contest. They're going to get a signed and personalized copy of Foreknowledge from me, and I will make it out to anybody, inscribe it to anybody you want. I'm not saying this like braggadociously, but these books are pretty hard to find. I don't think that there was much of a run for the last few Quantum Leap books, and I have never seen my book out in the wild since it was published. So the fact that somebody is looking to give it away to you, don't let that give horse in the mouth. Just go and see what you can do to help support Matt's family. And no purchase necessary, void where prohibited.
And only in the continental United States and not legal in Pueblo, Colorado.
There we go. So everything Albie just said, but
comment, donate.
There you go.
I'm going to check. You guys vamp while I check the donation link, see if we got any donations yet, okay?
Yeah, so, and do you remember when I told you guys, I didn't realize it for 20 years, but Kyle is basically me. I had no idea I was writing myself into the story until I reread it, and I said, holy crap, you're so freaking vain. But,
you're so vain.
I could see him in you.
Yeah. I think that this was one of the chapters for me that was a little bit more workaday, like because it was helping build some of the new characters and also giving more of a foundation for Sam's leap.
Whoa!
Well, what are we woeing?
We got donations since last time. I think last time we ended with Willard, and since then we got Kimberly. Thank you so much.
Nice.
Maile. Maile.
Oh, Miley. She was a big fan of the. She was one of the supporters on Patreon.
Wow,
Miley Enos. I'm thinking probably Miley Enos.
Generous donations by all, and
thank you.
Quite extreme donation from Charles.
Ooh,
I'm wondering if it's Charles we know.
I think it might be Captain Charles.
It might be Captain Charles. So
thank you guys.
Thank you, everyone, for donating, and keep those things coming in. We really appreciate it. It's all going to Matt's family, and we're going to try to give him a little bit of a better holiday season.
Yeah, and I have one of the very few signed copies of Foreknowledge. See, Chris has signed mine for me.
Mm-hmm.
It says, to Hayden, my friend and partner in podcasting, like Sam, we never stopped leaping. Oh, boy. And it's true.
What does mine say, Rennie?
I can't read cursive that well.
Oh, come on. Let's see.
The what, Bill?
To Albie and Serenity, friends and fellow leapers, thank you for your love. Thank you for your friendship. Thank you for your, what's that word? Inspiration. Your friend in time, Christopher DeFilippis.
I stole that your friend in timeline from Matt. He used to use it all the time.
Oh,
so whenever I write that, it's an homage to my dear departed friend Matt Dale.
Yeah, I haven't seen these online cheaper than maybe $88, $90, and that was a pretty beat up copy. They're going for over 100. I don't know if it's a rarity or just everybody got to know you on the show, so they want to read your book. Probably a little combination of both.
Yeah, I mean,
I've never seen it in the wild. Now I've seen the other ones.
Yeah, well, when we got all those copies for when we did the fan fiction competition, they weren't anywhere near that. Yeah. That was awesome when you put up the photo, Chris, of like the big pile of them that we got for you.
Yeah.
Oh, that's good. Maybe we cleared the market. That's what happened. We recreated a shortage.
We bought all the copies.
We made the tulips thing happen all over. Right?
Yeah.
Was it tulips? People were prospecting on tulips years ago. Okay, chapter 7. Now, can somebody read this in the original Australian?
How often do you want me to go?
Not that much.
All right. Let's
Lucky
see.
7.
Let's see how my voices go today.
All right.
I've got so many of them floating around in my head. I've got to figure out which one to listen to.
Wait, Sean Gibson says my copy of Foreknowledge is actually still sealed after I picked it up on eBay a few years ago. Sean, this is the time to break that puppy open.
Yeah, read along with us.
Hey, there's digital copies available on Al's Place if you want to keep your copy pristine. I don't blame you for doing that. You've done the right thing buying one.
Chris, tell me what kind of person would get a book wrapped in plastic wrap and then keep it on their shelf and not open it and not read it?
I don't know. I guess Sean and I are guilty of the same thing.
For those of us that watch Trek Exploration on the other channel, we're trying to get Chris to read that book.
It's Imzadi by Peter David.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay, so chapter 7 in the original Australian, and please remember to donate, give what you can. Nothing's too large, nothing's too small. And thank you so much. And share, let people know.
Okay.
Appreciate it.
Chapter 7. She didn't know what it was. Sometimes it was like that. The pencil just did what it wanted to, regardless of her original intent. She had chosen drawing because it was an active exercise, one that kept her thinking, kept her growing. There was no chance it could degenerate into a mindless habit, as the origami had. And to her surprise, she'd gotten pretty good at it. When she drew a tree, it looked like a tree. Her self-portraits had also been pretty good likenesses. But this was one of the weird drawings. She supposed the image could pass for a table, but it was curved and thin and angled like something out of which those dumb outer space shows her brother used to watch. It stood on a low day. Something in her mind told her the absence of anything else was fitting. The drawing was finished. "I don't know how you escaped from Art Deco hell," she said to the image on her pad, "but you can't hide out here." She ripped the page off. She had wanted to attempt a nature scene like the one on the Japanese screen in her office. When she had an office. When she had a life. Stop it. You draw to build yourself up, not drag yourself down. You are a creative, intelligent human being. What's done is done. Concentrate on the future. But instead of throwing the drawing away and forgetting about it, she unclenched her fist and smoothed it out. She got up and carefully placed it under her mattress. It joined a growing collection of artistic enigmas. A bed that wasn't the one in her cell. A door that wasn't her cell door. The woman. She studied the woman a lot. She was black, like Evangeline, but that was where the similarity ended. If it was just a botched sketch of her friend, there should have been some resemblance. No, this was a totally different person. One she felt she should know. Only she didn't know from where. As odd as the sketch of the woman was, however, it wasn't the oddest of the lot. Anne-Marie forced herself to shuffle the papers around until she found the drawing she was looking for. Every time she saw it, her heart leapt to her throat. It terrified her. It had started innocently enough. She'd drawn herself again, a profile this time. But the work had expanded of its own volition. Before she knew it, her head was attached to a body, clothed in a jumpsuit much tighter than any of her prison garments. Floating in the air in front of her was a mirror. But the image in it wasn't her. That was the terrifying part. Her reflection was an ill-defined, shadowy figure. There was a hole where the face should have been. But it was more than a hole. Her pencil lacked the ability to portray it accurately. The hole tore at her, pulled her in, trying to clutch her soul and consume her identity. She dropped the picture with a gasp, sweat rolling down her sides. She moved the other papers so they would cover it and dropped the mattress all over them. Still, she couldn't stop thinking about it. All of it was connected somehow. All of it circled back to the secrets that prowled in the dark corners of her mind and made her wake up almost every morning, gasping in fear and confusion. Forget about it. I can't. Try harder. It's not working. It always comes back. Don't let it. Bury it. I don't even know what I'm supposed to bury. Tears of rage and fear mingled with the sweat on Anne-Marie's cheeks as the mental argument continued. It's a weakness. Stop it. Weakness is for fools. Shut up. Weak-minded fools. Shut up, shut up, shut up, shut up, shut up. Shut up. The words tore from her throat and she choked on a sob. She ran to the sink in a fit of coughing and doused herself repeatedly. The cold water helped return calm and banish the voices, but she fell to her knees, sniffling and hiccuping through chattering teeth. I am not weak-minded. I am not imagining all of this. She grabbed her pencil and scored a blank sheet of paper with thick lines, marking the repetition of those words in her mind. She coaxed her thoughts and hand to rest. The pencil's tip had long since shattered. The tiny slithers of lead and wood decorated the page, which was now torn through in places. The adrenaline departed, leaving exhaustion in its wake. She threw the pencil at the wall, swept the pad to the floor, and curled up on her bunk. Sleep took Anne-Marie, and the monsters lurking underneath the mattress soon did the same. She fought at the straps biting into her wrists and ankles, arching her back in a vain attempt to get free. Her hair was plastered to her forehead and sweat stung her eyes. She collapsed, panting. Where are you, you bitch? She yelled. Come out! A low whine filled the room, and Anne-Marie craned her neck in the direction of the rising door. The doctor was back, but this time she wasn't alone. A large man in a military uniform accompanied her. Close enough, soldier, Beeks said, gesturing to the wall with her chin. Stand post there. Move only on my word. The guard nodded and stood at ease behind the door. Anne-Marie thought he looked even more menacing in his relaxed stance. Misery, Beeks turned to Anne-Marie, smile fixed in place. I really hate to see you like that, and I don't want to have to medicate you again. Will you promise to stay calm if I loosen your restraints? How did you know my name? I'll answer what questions I can if you promise to give me a bit of cooperation. Agreed? Yes. Anne-Marie bit off the word. As a rule, she permitted others to only see weakness when it was calculated to get what she wanted. And while surrendering to this woman would buy Anne-Marie freedom, it wasn't on her own terms. It irked her. I don't know if I can take your word on that, Beeks replied. But as you can see, I don't have to. She glanced meaningly at the guard. I do know you're terrified, but I promise no harm will come to you for whatever it's worth. Terrified? We'll see who's terrified soon enough, bitch. Anne-Marie smiled weakly. It's worth a lot. I just want to know what's going on. Beeks hesitated for an instant, then loosened the restraints. Anne-Marie sat up slowly, rubbing circulation back into her wrists as Beeks set her feet free. She stamped her heels alternately on the floor, banishing the pins and needles. Are you hungry? I can have food brought in. Would she send the guard? That would be nice. Beeks nodded. Ziggy, have someone bring... She looked askance at Anne-Marie. What the hell? Foie gras and squab? Some pate and something to drink for our guest. Sorry, the duck's off today. The guard remained where he was. Who are you talking to? Beeks smiled. We have rather a sophisticated intercom system here. I guess you could call Ziggy our dispatcher. Dispatcher indeed, said a voice from out of nowhere. Oh, it's Ziggy's voice, is it? All right, I'll try again. How would it go? Dispatcher indeed, said a voice from out of nowhere. Anne-Marie looked around, but couldn't locate its source. It seemed to come from everywhere. I am capable of handling far more advanced tasks. That's enough, Ziggy, Beeks said curtly. You know the rules. This conversation is over. Very well. Silence followed. She always has to get the last word, Beeks said under her breath. Never mind studying visitors. I could write another thesis on her alone. Is that what I am? A visitor? Yes, Biggs said. Well, that's how we refer to our guests. How did I get here? You've become part of a sociological experiment. What? Your persona has been switched with that of a scientist, a doctor. He's now acting in your stead to observe human behavior. What? To everyone else, this scientist is you. He looks like you. He talks like you. And for the experiment to be a success, he has to act like you. Beeks patted Anne-Marie's knee, and her tone became soothing. That's why I need to know more about you and what you do. As far as we can ascertain, you're in the import-export business. But we know there's more. And you need to tell us what it is if you want things to return to normal. Anne-Marie laughed. The explanation was so ludicrous that it caused something to click in her mind. What are you trying to pull, lady? She became furious at herself for not thinking of it sooner. They were deliberately trying to throw her off balance. To hell with the innocent act. She would have to move soon, guard or no guard. Do you think I'm stupid? You're with the FBI. Colton gave you my name to save his own ass. You concocted this whole setup so I would confide in you. Well, you obviously have nothing solid on me or you wouldn't be going through all this. Anne-Marie stood and made a gesture that encompassed the room, laughing again. Look at this. And that crap about a sociology experiment and switching personas sounds like a sci-fi story my idiot brother would make up. Only he would probably find a way to throw time travel into it somehow. Beeks gasped at the last comment. That was all the confirmation Anne-Marie needed. What's the matter? Cover blown? Now charge me or release me. But let's drop the act. I don't know who Carlton is, Beeks said, regaining her composure. But you're wrong. There is an experiment. And if you ever want to go home again, you better start cooperating. Shove it up your ass. I want to talk to a lawyer. Beeks faced Anne-Marie furious. I will thank you not to use that kind of language. And it's proof you need. And if it's proof you need, I can provide it. The doctor walked to the console on the opposite side of the room. I hesitated to do this before because you were so unstable. But there's no other way. Come here. I'll show you unstable. Anne-Marie stalked to the table's edge, opposite the doctor, balling her fists. What happens now? You show me how to pilot the spaceship? Be quiet. Just look down. Anne-Marie did as she was told. The tabletop was of smooth white formica. Oh yes, this is very interesting, she mocked. The only things breaking the monotony were mirrors set at angles at either end. I guess you really showed... The words died in her throat as she caught sight of herself in the mirror. A man stared back at her. What the... She shot Beeks a questioning look and resumed her study, panic rising. She pursed her lips. The man pursed his lips. She shook her head. The man shook his head. She slowly brought her hands up and felt her cheeks. The man did the same. Oh my God! Her breath started coming faster. The man in the mirror was becoming flush. Sweat popped out of his forehead. Anne-Marie wiped her own forehead and her hand became way wet. What have you done to me? She could hear the terror increasing in her voice. Who is this? She clawed at her cheeks. The man in the mirror bled. He cried too. No, Anne-Marie yelled. That's impossible. I'm me. Beeks rounded the console and tried to pull Anne-Marie away. Anne-Marie threw her off violently. Who are you? She screamed at the reflection. She raised her fist and smashed the glass. The madman stared back at her from each tiny shard. She felt something bite her neck, and the head in the mirror jerked to one side. The man's face came closer very slowly. Or was she falling toward it? Things went black before she discovered which. What in the world is going on with you? Anne-Marie continued shuffling the hand she was dealt. You gave me crap here. Did you rig this deck? I have nothing to put down. Oh, don't sass foolish with me, child. You don't know I ain't talking about gin rummy. Evangeline took Anne-Marie's cards and threw them on the pile. You look like a polecat that's been caught in a squall. Anne-Marie laughed. That one was new. Just prison parlor. The onset of rickets, maybe. Anne-Marie remained stoic. The only bones getting softer are the ones in your head. Okay. The parole board sent back another refusal. They won't consider an early release. It upset me. Enough to make you wake up screaming? Anne-Marie stood reflexively. Last night's scream had been the first. She couldn't remember what had caused it, of course, but it was the most violent awakening she'd ever had. What do you mean? I told you to cut the full talk. They heard you over on the next cell block you was carrying on so. Anne-Marie paused in her pacing. Carrying on? Girl, you were moaning and groaning enough to wake the dead. The screamer was only the finale. Want me out of a sound sleep, it did. So I'd say you owe me an explanation. It had started before she woke up. Acid soured her stomach and fury engulfed her. You want an explanation? Fine. Her tone turned accusatory. And I know you can't bear to hear my sob stories, so I wouldn't imagine inconveniencing you with a grand display of my petty character flaws. I'll make it short. There's something I can't remember, something that haunts my sleep but disappears before I wake up. And I know it has something to do with why I'm stuck in this rat hole. Anne-Marie felt tears running down her cheeks. The words scraping through her gritted teeth prevented Evangeline's attempts to speak. And don't even dare to start a lecture. I don't know what it's like to live in your serene little world of burdens borne and beds slept in. It must be nice. But forgive me for being human. I'm bitter. I'm angry. And I feel like I'm going... Anne-Marie stopped herself. She refused to let the word pass her mind, much less her lips. She would never lay herself bare like that. Not in front of anybody. There was a look in Evangeline's eyes that Anne-Marie had never seen before. Fear. Only then did Anne-Marie realize she was looming over her friend. She leaned back against the sink, wiping at her cheeks and sniffling. There's your problem. And if you can't deal with it, that's your problem. There's the door. Evangeline stood but didn't leave. Instead, she hugged Anne-Marie. Anne-Marie tried to pull away at first, but at last surrendered, letting the tears come. Shush, child. Evangeline soothed, stroking Anne-Marie's hair. What could be causing you such pain? Why didn't you tell me earlier? You said, I know what I said, but respecting your elders can only go so far. Sometimes you just gotta tell an old fool to shut up. Anne-Marie pulled away, attempting composure. What difference would it have made? Everyone's got a story, right? You can try and analyze it all you want, but nothing can change it. She sighed and forced strength into her voice. Just forget about it. Evangeline cocked her head, hands on hips. Girl, you just knocked down part of the wall. Why you try to build it back up again? You don't have to do it alone. Anne-Marie snorted. The hell you don't. Even if I told you I might be able to help? How? Come to my cell tonight an hour before lights out. Are you telling me you can help me remember? Maybe. There's a difference between telling and doing. But of course, and come right down to it, the choice is yours. But to make it work, you're going to have to give me something I can see you never gave no one. What? Your trust.
Woo! Good job, Hayden.
When I was writing this, I didn't realize how melodramatic Anne-Marie was all the time. So
yeah. Not good for the vocal cords, by the way.
I don't know. I love that voice, Hayden. No matter what project we work on next, you just have to use that voice the whole time.
Yeah.
It doesn't look like that voice. It looks great. All right, so you guys talk, and anything, any insights about this chapter, Chris? While I look about for donations.
This was one of the easier ones to write. A lot of the Anne-Marie stuff for me was very easy to write. I wanted to make her into someone that is really wary and like self-preservation above all else, because she feels like she's in it alone. She trusts no one. She has no faith in anything but herself. And the fact that she had her identity stripped away, which is the core of who she is, this self-assuredness, is what has driven her over the edge, so to speak. So I wanted to not only have that, but also put the back of the project stuff that everybody likes. Mm-hmm. So it gives, even though she can't remember it, it gives you a basis for what she decides to do later in the book. And it gives you a reason why she's always on edge all the time.
I really love the description of like looking at yourself in the mirror and it not being you. That was really good.
Right. Yeah. And the drawing. Go ahead, Hayden.
I was just going to say in the previous chapter as well, I liked the mention of Katie and Jim Bonnick, and
Yeah, I made that up. I mean, I wanted to do the Katie thing and to have Katie go to Mizzou. That's where I went to school, by the way. Not only is Kyle me, he has the same exact life experience as well.
Is he as handsome as you?
Even more handsome. He's as Irish
my
as Paddy's
goodness.
pig. I wonder who else is as Irish as Paddy's pig, even though I'm mostly Italian.
You're Irish? I don't know. You cook Italian. I like to watch you cook. All right. Remember,
it's a shame that we actually never got to see any fanfic or any of the books or the comics or anything focus on Sam's sister Katie very much. I think that they were planning on some sort of a crossover with Magnum PI, and I reckon we probably would have seen Katie in that if that ever happened on the show, because wasn't Jim a Magnum character? Something like that.
From what I understand, yes.
Yeah, I love the actress. She's in what is it? Planes, Trains, and Automobiles. Also,
Olivia Burnett. Is that?
Yes. Huh?
Korman Productions is covering that later this month.
Cool. Well, I'll definitely listen to that. I just got the Funko Pops in today, the 2-pack of Dale Griffith and what's the other one? Well, anyway, Steve Martin and John Candy. Yeah, so I think they were released this week and they came to the door today, so I was really excited.
That reminds me of a hilarious meme that I saw the other day, being the Christmas season and or coming up to it, and it says, my can says free candy on it. And then it says the candy in the van, and it's John Candy when he's playing his
like tuba or something. From that movie, Home Alone? Was that the Home Alone one? Yeah, he's in all those. He's good.
Yeah.
We watch it every Thanksgiving, so we decided to get the Funko Pops for a Thanksgiving decoration because I mean,
and you can tell who they are immediately.
Yeah, it's a good likeness.
And again, we're click on or
the QR code.
The QR code.
Take your smartphone and then try to go take a picture of the QR code, and it'll give you a little link pop up. Ours is yellow on the iOS, and you just click it. It'll take you right to the GoFundMe or Google Matt Dale GoFundMe and see what you can donate. And we are also accepting super chats. So
we've got quite a few comments as well in the chat. So let's have a look at what people are saying. We've got a few hellos. Korman said, "Great job, Chris. Now put me in coach."
I believe that's Stacy, right?
I think that is Stacy. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, and Sean said that his copy of Foreknowledge is still sealed.
Right. Yeah. We read that one.
Korman said stickers are welcome. I like stickers.
Yeah.
Super chat.
I'm aware that when I read it, it'll be the last original Quantum Leap stuff I've yet to read. Okay.
Well,
that's cool.
That might not be true because I might have something of an announcement as we progress with this reading series. So tease, maybe a little bit of a tease there, but
and for those of you just joining us, we do have a giveaway of a copy. So go back and watch all this, and you'll find out how to be entered into the giveaway, not a contest. Void in Pueblo, Colorado. And now, Dave from Korman Productions.
Oh boy.
And TV Talk podcast, is that it? I'm trying to get it this time for real.
Deep Dive TV Podcast.
Deep Dive TV Podcast. So it's about that episode of Knight Rider where they go scuba diving into that cave, and there's this brother and sister, and then there's like international intrigue, and there's diamonds or something.
I remember that. I don't think I remember that episode.
I think they called it Katis. That was the name of the cave. How do I remember that? Like 40 years later, something like that? I don't know. But anyway, Dave, could you read us chapter 8 while people donate away?
And,
thank you.
I am probably going to leave after finishing reading this chapter.
Okay, no problem. By the time you leave, Damon should be around. So that's
all right.
perfect.
Sounds good.
Thank you so much, Dave.
All right, Dave, you're getting a short but pivotal chapter. That's what I meant to say. Pivotal.
Good one. More mud wrestling, right, Chris?
I don't think I would have done better with that word either.
Yeah. Pivotal chapter.
Thank you so much, Dave, for sticking around. I appreciate it.
All right, yeah, no problem. Okay, so the cell was okay. Well, off to a bad start already.
I'm going to blame the internet connection, so that's all right.
Okay, the cell was bedecked with candles. Anne-Marie's eyes were drawn to their dancing glow. Her skin warmed with their heat. Her nose filled with their odd scent. Okay. How do I pronounce that name?
Evangeline.
Evangeline.
Okay. Evangeline sat with her back to her neatly made bunk. She smiled at Anne-Marie and pointed to the space in front of her. The flickering points of light multiplied Anne-Marie's shadow into 1,000 overlapping images that followed suit when she sat down. Where did you get all those candles? Child, just because I don't have a radio, like you, doesn't mean I don't have connections. I've been in this place a long time. When I want something, as you can see...
Evangeline.
Evangeline gestured slowly around the room. I get it. And as I can see by the look in your eyes, you're confused and maybe a little scared, although I know you'd rather eat raw chitlins than say it out loud.
Ooh.
Anne-Marie...
This is so funny when I'm hearing it in her voice in my head. I'm just, I can do Evangeline's voice for you if you want, Dave.
Sure.
All right. Do you want me to read that sentence again?
No, let's just go. Let's keep going.
Anne-Marie wanted to ask what in the world chitlins were, but she was afraid her voice would betray her. Instead, she just looked questioningly at
Evangeline.
Evangeline.
Like Evangeline Lilly, I think.
Okay. Try one more time. Evangeline. Evangeline. Okay. You can tell from my podcast that names are not my thing.
Where does that name come from? Is that like evangelical?
No, honestly,
like
Laura named Evangeline.
Aw.
Yeah, I had
Laura.
another name for her, but when she read the character, she said that character's name is Evangeline.
I love it.
Yeah.
She's a good woman.
The candles are more to get you relaxing than anything else. You need to calm your mind, empty it of thoughts. So I'll explain what I can to put your wondering to rest. When I was a little girl, Mama used to take me to visit my grandma, who lived on a small island called Sapelo. It's one of the Palo. It's one of the Gula Islands off the coast of Georgia.
Oh, it's Gullah Gullah Island.
Hey, Brian.
Hello, Brian.
Hey, Brian.
Brian
How you
Green.
doing?
Woo! All the way from Poughkeepsie. Hey, Brian. We're reading chapter 8 if you're trying to keep up.
We're on the top of page 84.
You got cotton in your ears, girl. What did I just get done saying? Evangeline waited for Anne-Marie's nod before continuing. There's a whole mess of islands there. People call them low country. Those that live there are called the Geech.
Geechee.
Mama and me.
Geechee.
Geechee?
Yeah. There's going to be a lot of names thrown around here.
I never heard that word before.
Do you want me to take over?
Worst chapter for me to wear.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, we got a lot. She's going to talk about some mystical stuff with a lot of proper nouns.
Mama and me, we take a boat over there a few times a year. That's when Grandma would teach me about the Ola Run. That was her name for God.
Everyone is talking at the same time.
Evangeline paused at Anne-Marie's questioning look. Go ahead, ask. I just thought you were a Christian. I am, but my grandparents were brought to the island as slaves, come over from Africa. They had a different religion. Since the islands are so isolated, they were made to give it up.
They were never made to give it up.
Oh, they were never made to give it up. And when freedom came after the Civil War, all the white folks left. The African religion took hold stronger than ever. Evangeline chuckled. Daddy would never come with us. He was a God-fearing man, and he used to tell me not to listen to Grandma's crazy talk about such things. But Mama explained it's so I could understand. Grandma simply saw a God, or Grandma simply saw God in a different way. To her, he had lots of faces, not just one. Daddy believed in. The faces were called Oristas.
Would you mind if I took over on this chapter, Dave?
Absolutely.
It's kind of important. I'm sorry.
Sorry about that. I didn't know all the proper names and nouns in this thing.
Evangeline chuckled. Daddy would never come with us. He was a God-fearing man. And he used to tell me not to listen to Grandma's crazy talk about such things. But Mama explained it so I could understand. Grandma simply saw God in a different way. To her, he had lots of faces, not just the one Daddy believed in. The faces were called Orishas, and each watched over a different thing. With my glasses on so I can watch over this text. Each watched over a different thing. Orishas? Anne-Marie wondered where this could possibly be going. That's right. I remember her telling me about 7 or 8 of them. There was Obalata, who created the world and humanity after Olarun created the universe. Ogun watches over workers and war. Even I get Ohoshi. Oshoshi is a hunter.
These are words I'd never seen.
Yeah, these are words that I got out of like research, but I never had to read aloud. So Oshoshi is the hunter. Oya is the wind, and Ocean and Yamaya control the waters. The strange names rolled off of Evangeline's tongue in a stranger accent, unlike they're rolling off my tongue right now. It was Southern almost, but there was something else. Obalata. Anne-Marie had trouble reproducing the sound. Don't even try, girl. Unless you come from Africa, you probably won't get it. Grandma had a real peculiar way of talking. Mama, she called it Yoruba talk. Evangeline poked at a glob of soft wax collecting around a candle. Grandma never took to English much, being separated from the mainland like she was. I could only understand her half the time and couldn't but talk a little. But you learned the names of these Orishas? They were easy. You could see them all around. One year a flood came up with the rains. Grandma said Ocean and Yamaya were having a squabble. Whenever it was blowing up and howling at night, Oya was the one causing the ruckus. How are nature gods going to help me? I was getting to that if you'd let me. There were others, those who looked after things on the inside, if you get my meaning. Alegba was one of them. He stands at the crossroads between the world of the flesh and the world of the spirit. It's him that allows us to open up doors and travel down roads. His colors are red, white, and black. Evangeline said that with a weight that told Anne-Marie it was supposed to mean something. Her silence annoyed the older woman. Are you blind as well as deaf? Huh? Anne-Marie looked around in the flickering brightness, finally focusing on the wax Evangeline was dipping a finger in. It was red. All of the candles sat in pools of red, white, or black wax. You don't mean... It's precisely what I mean. Alegba can help you. Evangeline, no, I don't believe in God, and even I know it would be blasphemy for you to do this. How can it be blasphemy? There is only one God. When Mama told me that Grandma saw his many faces, she was only helping a fool girl understand something a little more complicated. But since God is everywhere, why can't he show himself in different ways to different people? But you're talking about something primitive here, a religion practiced with ignorance of... Surely you're not calling my grandma ignorant. Well, primitive? She was neither. Nor was she evil, as Daddy thought. That's why the more I think of it, the more I'm convinced Mama was as close to the truth as a bullfrog is to mud. It really was God's way of reaching Grandma and her folk. And Grandma taught me how she would talk back. Anne-Marie was still uneasy, but she wasn't going to argue. This was the big answer. She was positive it wouldn't work. So what do we do? We're already doing it. It's called a bembe, a meeting to connect us with the spirit world. The candles are an offering to Alegba, inviting him to join us. She shot Anne-Marie an accusing look. Your eyes are telling me you've already given up on him. That's why you need to trust me, like I told you. A bit of faith is all I ask. Some belief in something other than what you can grab up in your hands. Okay, what do I do? Surrender. Let down your barriers. But don't butt me, girl. Why are you so afraid? I'm trying to help you find the truth. Instead, you'd rather keep kneeling down to fear. Don't you realize there's more of a surrender? Don't you realize that's more of a surrender than anything else? Anne-Marie drew a ragged breath. She didn't give a damn about fear or truth. She just wanted it to all go away. But she needed to know. More than anything, she needed to know. I'm ready. Evangeline smiled. Good. And I promise not to hurt you. Just close your eyes and relax. The world we're living in ain't the only one. If you want to travel the path of spirit, you need to open your heart. The answers you're looking for are there. Evangeline started to chant rhythmically, keeping time on her knees. Anne-Marie listened closely, attempting to decipher the words, but it was hard to concentrate. The steady mutterings bore her tension away. That's right, Evangeline continued in the same meter. Let it all go. Open your mind. She resumed the chant, adding subtle nuances to each repetition. Anne-Marie felt her mind draw in on itself, slowly, slowly. The flickering after images on the insides of her eyelids were swallowed by an ever-brightening blue glow. Limbless, breathless, swimming in the light. A light of cold blue fear, of harsh white loneliness. Another person passing by her, through her. Where am I? The thought echoed unanswered, its dying reverberation a menacing companion. Distant lights moving closer. She moved closer to them, larger, larger, coming together. A face, black, large eyes. Sociological experiment. Looks like you. Talks like you. Words spilling into each other, prying out of her thoughts, naming themselves. Beaks. Getting fainter, dissolving. Alone. Insignificant. Lights. Wrapping her wrists. Biting. Trapped. More lights. Coalescing. A harsh white table. Upending. Getting closer. Run! Closer. Closer. Coming from every direction. No! Harsher white on each end. Terrible whiteness. Searing. Away! A man's face. Kind face. Crying. Bleeding. Terrible face. I am me. Many faces. Twisted. Spinning away in every direction. I am me. 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 Anne-Marie's head snapped back, connecting with the stone wall and forcing her eyes open. Sweat stung them, refracting 1,000 dancing flames into 1,000 more. She pulled up her soaked shirt, wiping vainly. The memory jarred into place, filling the chasm, banished the old questions, brought new ones. Evangeline rushed over to Anne-Marie. Girl, you take more knocks to the head than a 2-penny nail. How does it feel? Anne-Marie patted gently at the tender area. No blood stained her fingers. Just a lump this time. What did you see? Anne-Marie got up dizzily and rushed out onto the block. Oh, look at you. Ladies having a fun time in there? Fuck you, Tibber. After Tibber ordered her out of Evangeline's cell, Anne-Marie went directly to her own. Now she was sitting on her bunk, her pad in her lap. Her pencil worked furiously, reconstructing the memory that was getting stronger with each line drawn. A long face, largest nose, defined cheekbones, but not harsh, deep hazel eyes. Evangeline had followed her. She cast a shadow into the room. What is it? What did you... Anne-Marie held up a silencing hand. Round forehead, brown hair pulling away from a white streak. Sweat dripped onto the page, blurring an eye. She brushed at it in annoyance, smearing the image. Damn! She moved on to the chin, round, just like so. It was finished. She held it up for Evangeline's inspection. He's the key. Evangeline took the pad and studied the face. Who was he? The man of my dreams. The man in the mirror. Evangeline looked at her in confusion. Anne-Marie overturned the mattress, pulling out the pictures and lining them on the floor. Look at these. She pointed to the image that brought her the most fear. He's the shadow man. She indicated Beeks, the table, the bunk. She was there, and that was there, and that was there. She rambled on, not caring that she sounded like a demented Dorothy returning from a place far stranger than Oz. Where, child? Where? I don't know, but I remember. She threw her arms around Evangeline and hugged her fiercely. Thank you. You did it. Thank you. Tears leaked out of the corners of her eyes, and she felt ridiculous. Crying from too much happiness was something that happened only in pages of books. She threw her head back and laughed. I don't think I can explain it. Not now, anyway. But Evangeline sighed, okay. It's getting close to lights out anyhow. She raised an admonishing finger, but I will want to hear all about it come morning. I swear to God. Don't blaspheme where I can hear it, child. I'll pray for you before I go to sleep. If I ever get to sleep with all those candles that need picking up. Evangeline's voice trailed off as she left the cell. Anne-Marie softly swung the door shut and returned to the pictures lining the floor. They finally made sense, yet they were far more confusing than ever. This went far beyond an FBI sting. Where had the strange reflection come from? She shivered. As good as it was to remember, she felt more spooked than ever. What the hell kind of experiment had she gotten caught up in? Not sociology. It was something more, something they hadn't told her, or couldn't tell her. Why me? She asked the image of the mirror man. Why did you put me in here? How? She clutched the paper hard enough to tear the edges. Who are you? Anger contorted the question into a strangled squeal. Frustration cracked her mind's edges. Who? Control. You have your answers. But what good are they? It's a beginning. It was supposed to be an ending. Be strong. Yes, strength, a beginning. She could not give in now, would not. You're mine now. Did you really think you had the right to screw with me and get away with it? The page quivered in her trembling fingers. Did you? The charcoal face remained mute, mocking.
Wow.
Boom, boom, boom. That's one of my favorite chapters, and upon reflection, one of the most problematic in the entire book, because I've since learned of a trope, and this is just what it's called in fiction, called the magical Negro. And I think it's something that Stephen King used in The Stand, and I think it's something that they even parodied on the Key and Peele show. And at the time, it seemed like authentic and a good way to bring Evangeline's character, especially with the Geechee and the Gula and all of sort of the African religion stuff. And it gave her a background that was interesting. But I don't know how it holds up, considering how we've moved on as a society. So that's one thing I really wanted to discuss with Matt and Allison when we did the book on the podcast.
Maybe the QLP will get around to it eventually, and hopefully Allison will join us.
Yeah.
It was funny while you were reading, I think page 87, the dialogue back and forth. For some reason, I was picturing you like on a dark stage, smoking a cigarette, wearing like mime clothes, and like doing a Fosse dance as you were saying. I don't know why.
Me, I can't help but think now that when Anne-Marie is having the battle in her head, it's like Gollum and Smeagol. It's like I just see Gollum and Smeagol. And Andy Serkis should play Anne-Marie in the movie.
Yeah, but yeah, for some reason I was picturing it like you were doing it like a performance poem or something. It was pretty good.
It does fit with Quantum Leap though, because they actually did that a bit in the show and in the other extended media as well, like Freedom with John Salcedo's character, with the American Indian magic, and also in the Search and Rescue novel, I think it was, and getting some help with Sam finding his inner animal and using that to help him out. So, I mean, I don't know if it's socially acceptable anymore, but at the same time, it does fit with the Quantum League universe. So,
yeah, it's set in the time it was in.
Yeah.
So,
and Dave,
well, thanks for taking over, Chris, because I had no chance.
Yeah.
With all those
honestly, even I got confused reading it aloud. It made sense in my head when I was writing it because it's all flashbacks to things we've seen. And I think it works better on the page than it does out loud, because it's more to be more mentally evocative than read out loud as like dialogue. So
it reminded me of like Star Trek books when I'm reading it and there's new words I don't know, or races or names I can't pronounce for nothing. I just like give them a different name, like Bill or Bob, instead of Wakaka. You know,
it's funny when I was researching all of the Gula, Geechee, the religion that Evangeline is practicing here. It's basically Santeria. But I didn't have access to any kind of internet at the time. It was like 1993 when I was writing this, maybe 1995, somewhere. It was early 90s, mid 90s. And I just had like dial up. So I was able to like get onto a bunch of different chat boards and ask people about this stuff. Then I found, I think, one book in the library that kind of outlined like all of the Orishas and what their roles were. And I felt like I was hitting like pay dirt. The one thing I do notice in this that I have Evangeline do a lot is cross herself, but she's not Catholic. She's Baptist. She would never do the sign of the cross like a Catholic would, but it seemed to work in the moment when I was writing it. But I just noticed it now. So
something they would have done on the show probably too. I mean, the whole Native American thing.
You wrote the book in the 1900s?
In 1900s?
In the 1900s, yes.
All right, we got a message from Brian. He said, "Guys, I'm having some issues staying online. So sorry, I have to leave again in a few anyway. Sorry, I missed this one. That's okay. Try again next time, Bri."
Janice is on as well, and she's called herself NBC was wrong to cancel Quantum Leap, which they were. It says, Janice here, NBC cancelled Quantum Leap so Donald Trump could get elected. Change my mind.
I don't understand how
maybe Zoe and Thames had something to do with that.
We got from Korman, run, hide, trapped. That part reminded me of Teacup on Peacock that we are covering on our channel.
Yes.
Yeah, Dave, tell me a little bit more about the Deep Dive TV podcast by Korman Productions. Did I get it?
You did.
Woo! I've been working on it for months.
So yeah, currently we're covering from season 3, Sullivan's Crossing season 2. We just finished Teacup that Stacey just mentioned, which was a mystery box type of show. we're covering a bunch of movies. We did like 5 Halloween movies, and we got Son-in-Law coming up in pretty soon.
Oh, buddy. Weasel.
It's funny because I'm not exactly a Pauly Shore fan.
Mhm.
I didn't like him back in the day, but I did enjoy this movie watching it this time through. And of course, Planes, Trains, and Automobiles, which we just talked about.
That's awesome.
So we got a lot of good stuff coming up.
Pauly sure signed my Laserdisc, took a picture with me, and she's got the T-shirt.
Awesome.
Awesome. Okay, we're doing this for donations. That QR code on your screen. Put your phone up to it. Click it. Find out what that fundraiser about. It's going to go to Matt Dale's GoFundMe. If you don't know how to do a QR code, that's fine. Everything's new. What's it called? QR. What is that for? Quick reference, quick response, something.
Quick response.
I think so. There's a good thing on Veritasium about it. But if not, just Google Matt Dale GoFundMe, and it'll come up. Anything you can give. Nothing's too little. Nothing's too big.
GoFundMe, no spaces.
No spaces. It's one word. They
One
do that
word.
now.
One word.
One word, like Albie. Just Albie.
Matt space.
All right.
Dale, space.
Damon is not here yet. So I'm looking around who can read this chapter. It looks like it might have to be me.
I'll
Oh,
go.
no.
Before we do that, I'm gonna.
Yeah.
Bye.
Oh, thank you so much, Dave. And everybody
Yeah.
check out the TV Deep Dive Al's Place
Color Production
podcast.
Deep Dive TV podcast.
Yes, that one. All right. Where can people find it?
YouTube. You can also actually just put the podcast up on Apple recently. I finally figured out how to do that.
Cool.
And you can also find it on Spotify and a bunch of different other places.
All right.
Okay. Damon says
Ooh.
he'll be about a minute or so. So
Ooh,
everybody go check out the Deep Dive TV podcast from Korman
Yes.
Productions.
So, yes, thank you, Dave, so much. Appreciate
Thanks,
it.
Dave.
Thank you.
And come again and share and like. All right. Is this a hard chapter, Chris? Should I wait for Damon?
We're back with Sam's Leap in this chapter. So
Sam.
listen, if you want me to take over, I'll take over.
All
I
right.
can do it too if you need.
All right. Wait.
David's
Hold
still
on.
trying to get up. David's like Abe Simpson trying to figure out smart technology. There he
There we-
goes. He's gone.
There we go. All right. Chapter 9. Oof. All right. Whose idea was this? Oh, yeah. Chapter 9. The sun was sliding into evening, bathing the club in twilight. Sam walked around the room, studying the framed posters lining the walls. Their distinctive style, colorful artwork, garish lettering, almost no photos, reminded Sam of Saturday afternoons in Elk Ridge when Tom would take him to the theater to catch the creature features. They were some pretty terrible movies. Always, I got to do this and see the light. Always more funny than scary, and these posters were just like those in Elk Ridge. Well, maybe not exactly like them. If they were, his mother would have forbidden him even to walk past the theater. Yep. Much less go in. Hey, Damon!
Hey.
I read the
we're
first
getting an
page.
echo, Damon. We're getting an echo.
Oh, getting an echo, Damon.
Echo.
Oh, we're getting an echo, Damon.
Yeah.
Oh, we're getting an echo, Damon. We're getting an echo, Damon.
Can't change it on my end.
Go out and then come back in and say you're wearing headphones. Or not
did.
wearing headphones. Not wearing headphones.
Not wearing headphones.
Yes.
Okay. All right. I can.
Oh, we're getting an echo, Damon. That's funny. I'll finish this page. His favorite so far was Satan's Seductress. Ooh, is that real?
I made all of these names up.
Okay. A rather supple cartoon cat lounged to one side. Sheer black negligee falling dangerously from one shoulder. Her face was cloaked in shadow, and blood dripped from the corners of her mouth. One kiss is all she asks. Read a line toward the bottom. A montage,
Read a line towards the bottom.
Read a line towards the bottom. A montage of smaller pictures clustered underneath this. It's okay. It's your turn to take over, Damon. We're on chapter 9.
What page?
91. 91. The last sentence on
Yeah.
91 is where you're at.
The very last word, in fact, which
Yeah,
is depicted, by the way.
A montage. Is that fine?
Yep, a montage. That's the
Oh,
one.
Montage.
Okay.
We're getting an echo, Damon. No,
No,
we're
we're
not.
Okay. A montage of smaller pictures clustered underneath depicted men in various states of terror. Sam thought one of them was Richard. The posters for Decadent Debs and Sorority Bloodbath tied for second favorite. Of course, all the posters suggested much more than they actually showed, but that was what made them so effective. They made him want to see the movies. They're a lost art. Richard was suddenly beside him. The man's movements were as quiet as his manner. That was one of the few posters I was actually featured on. He pointed to Satan's seductress. That is you. Yeah, about 25 years and 30 pounds ago, Richard chuckled. Maybe this will help. He popped his eyes out and dropped his jaw. Sam was amazed at the transformation. Richard looked like he was on the verge of insanity. An instant later, he was back to normal, grinning slightly. You haven't lost your touch. That's nothing. You should have seen me when I had more hair. Richard poked a finger at his scalp. I could make it stand on end. Sam laughed. Quite a trick. It was something, all right. Actors these days would be lost without all the slick effects and fancy lighting. Movies just don't have the feel anymore. Is this collection an homage to that? Not really. Richard scanned the room. It's more like my family album. Huh? See that one? Richard pointed to Invasion of the Flaming Leeches. That's when Kat and I first met. Our first off-screen kiss was on the set of Mutant's Revenge. Murderous Mandroid was made just after our honeymoon. He indicated each poster in turn. All of them mark different times in our life, in our youth. That's really romantic. Despite the oddities, Sam was beginning to like this man more and more. His retiring ways were a good counterbalance to Kat's flamboyance. It was a possibility he had overlooked in preparing for the impending confrontation. Would you consider speaking to the council tonight? Me? I'm just a bit player. Kat's the show gal. And she's ready to ram it down their throats, Sam said. She's worked herself up so much that I'm afraid she's going to forget about her speech and just tear Behringer's throat out. That's my scream queen, Richard said proudly. She'll make him stand up and take notice. Well, it's only part of what we want. They also need to sit down and really listen. You can make them do that. What would I say? Just speak from the heart. You seem to have a knack for it. Richard's nod was reluctant. I do have a stake in it all, I suppose, but if I come away from it looking like that, he pointed at his poster double, I'll come looking for you. Sam nodded and smiled. Deal. Richard departed quietly and was soon in his office, leaving Sam alone to guess at the odds. Had he turned things in their favor, or had he ruined everything? There was no way to tell because he hadn't heard a word from Al since the night of the Observer's humiliating exit. That in itself was more troubling than he could muster the strength to think of at the moment. 4 days with no odds, no glaring neckties, no lecherous jokes. Al had stayed away from a gaggle of mud wrestlers for 4 whole days. That really puts things in perspective. Something had to be seriously wrong with Ziggy. His worry was what had gotten him to the club so early. More was riding on tonight's showdown than the future of the Kit Kat bar. If all went well, he would probably leap. What would happen then? If the project hadn't contacted him for this long, would they even be able to reestablish the link after he leaked out? Don't do your job and you might be stuck here for the rest of your life. Do your job and they might lose you for good. He was feeling sick. Kat barreled through the front door. Her burgundy suit, a true creature of 1980s big business, was offset by a floral scarf. Her hair was gathered into a ponytail, and her makeup was minimal. The contrast to her usual appearance was so striking that Sam didn't recognize her until she spoke. Anyone else here yet, Candy? Just me and Richard. Sam let out a low whistle. Boy, you clean up real good. That ought to knock Behringer a little off balance. On the contrary, Kat fidgeted with the scarf and readjusted her lapels. I think this is the one time in my life when I can't rely on my looks to get by. Don't worry, the girls know what to say. You've been drilling us all week. So much so that the club had been closed since the night of the rally. That was definitely a plus, since it meant he didn't have to wrestle. But Kat's attitude was contagious, putting them all on edge. He anticipated her next comment and raised a finger to forestall her. And I brought a copy of each statement. They're on the bar. No one will forget her lines. That seemed to appease Kat. She joined Richard in the office as the other girls started to arrive. They were all a bundle of nerves and anticipation, even the ones coming to show moral support and solidarity. Tawny was one of the last to arrive. Since she wasn't speaking, Sam really hadn't seen much of her. Steeped in preparations and with no observer to remind him, he had almost forgotten about the altercation a few nights ago. He needed to get moving. I didn't think you'd show. Tawny smiled. Why? My paycheck is riding on this, too. It's just that I haven't seen you around much the last few days. Been busy with Kyle? Real subtle. Tawny began to walk away. Can't you just leave it alone? Sam grabbed her shoulder and spun her around. Can't you face the fact that you can't walk away from this? Tawny shrugged him off. That's the last time you touch me outside the ring without getting a broken arm, understand? In that case, I hope it's the last time I touch you. Instead of expressing the thought, Sam nodded and said, But will you at least hear me out? After what happened, I promised Kyle I'd talk to you. Tawny folded her arms. Don't you think you should go home to Kentucky for a little while and try to straighten things out? I'm sure your father misses you, and Kyle's certainly concerned. Tawny threw her head back in a bitter laugh. Oh, he's concerned, all right. Kentucky. He's concerned that he'll have to do everything himself. He's concerned that it might interfere with his precious career. Don't like Kentucky, or is it journalism in general you're against? Both. Kentucky isn't home. It's only the latest rung on Kyle's ladder to success. Huh? He seemed to be saying that a lot lately. Too many variables were slipping him up. Where the hell was Al? Don't you know that's how it works? You get your degree and then you work for minimum wage at some dinky station in some shitty little town in the middle of nowhere. A year goes by and you move to another shitty little town, only this one's in a slightly bigger market and they've tacked benefits onto your slave wages. In a few years, you do it again and again. Everyone needs to start at the bottom, Sam said. You can't fault him for that. I don't. I hope he makes it to New York or wherever journalist Nirvana is, but I won't give up my life to do it with him. Why would anyone expect you to? Tawny shook her head. It was some stupid promise that he made to Mom just before she went. My mom passed away. So I gathered. I'm sorry. Yeah, well, so am I. He told her he would keep the family together, take care of Dad and me, but his job takes up all of his time. So he has to work hard, Sam said. Did she realize how childish she sounded? I don't see how that can drive you to run away from it all. He expects us to come with him. He wants his career so bad, but he feels guilty leaving us behind. So it makes him feel better to drag us all over the country whenever a new job comes along. So much for snap judgments. Doesn't your dad have anything to say about this? Tawny let out a laugh more bitter than the last. That chameleon hasn't had anything to say about anything since Mom died. The night the hospital called and told us, he hung up the phone and just started walking around the kitchen in circles, mumbling to himself. I had to do everything. I didn't mind it then. He was in a lot of pain, and Kyle was so busy with school that he couldn't make it home until the funeral. I was needed, and I did what I had to. Why did you call your dad a chameleon? Because I kept expecting him to get better, to snap out of it. But he didn't. Sure, he put on a good show for Kyle at the funeral. Couldn't upset the golden boy with exams and graduation coming up. So I continued to do it all. Shop, keep house, make mortgage payments, because my father just sat in his chair day after day pining away. Why didn't you go to a counselor? Who the hell does things like that? I was too busy anyway, and I expected it to get better when Kyle was finished with school. It didn't, did it? The story was sounding all too familiar to Sam. Worse, Kyle was working like a dog, sometimes 16 hours. The only time we saw him was on TV and when he'd come home and collapse. Oh, Dad would perk up then. Giving him hell, son? Great story tonight. It was all I could do not to throw up the way he went on. So to Kyle, nothing was wrong. Very familiar. Only with me, I complained too much. I had to face my responsibilities like an adult. There was nothing wrong with Dad that he could see. The truth is, he refused to see it. It would interfere too much with work. After he started talking about moving us all to Kentucky for this great new job, I bolted. I'm not going to spend the rest of my life chained to one man who won't help himself and another who's using me to appease a dead woman. Tawny took a breath, letting the anger loose. It's a real bitch, ain't it? I chose to have my own life, and if you see Kyle again, let him know. I haven't spoken to him since the other night. She moved off. Sam watched her go. If her point didn't hit so painfully close to home, he might have thought of a response. Daddy's dead, Sam. Tommy's dead. Mom can't run the farm by herself. But you can't just sell it. Mom spent her whole life here. It'd kill her to leave. Well then, who's going to help her? You? You spend all your time going from MIT to Washington and back, doing whatever it is you do. If you took your nose out of a book for more time than it takes to eat Christmas dinner, you'd know what it's like to watch her live day in and day out with the ghosts in this big empty house. But she seems fine. Do you really think she'd let you believe otherwise? Jim is my husband, and I have to go where he does. And since I won't leave Mommy here to rot, there's no other choice. She's coming to Hawaii with us. Katie had been right, of course. Cold comfort. First, you're not there for Dad. Then you continue the vanishing act when Mom needs you. How could he possibly fault Tawny? He wiped at the corners of his eyes, forcing the memories away. How come Swiss cheesing never worked in his favor? Personal hells aside, he still needed to reconcile Tawny with her brother. Ziggy had said saving the club was his job, but Ziggy had been wrong before. Without Al, and maybe even with him, considering the shape Ziggy seemed to be in, there was no way for him to know for sure. But how are you going to do it for them when you couldn't do it for yourself? The council meeting had been going for almost 2 hours, and the end seemed nowhere in sight. Town Hall was hosting the event of the evening. Sam had marveled at the crowds gathered outside when they arrived. Picketers carrying RPL signs contended with another group carrying signs reading, "Take our liberties? No way," and "Keep Wilson free." His favorite said, "A vote for the Mud Queens is a vote for our children." The media had also made a good showing, flashbulbs lighting the night like strobe lights. The agenda for the meeting had been in the town's paper. Aside from Kat's hearing, the only other business on the docket consisted of a rezoning proposal and a broken curb on Main Street. Sam had in no way expected a reaction like this. The townspeople hadn't let him down after all. Many had prepared comments of their own, presented between his statements and those of the women from the club, all chiding the council for even considering such a measure, and Barringer in particular for spearheading it. Others showed full support. It was truly a town divided. Is there anyone else who wishes to speak to this order of business before we vote? Sam held his breath. They had agreed that Kat would be the last one up. It was a trick he had learned from Al when faced with Senate committee funding hearings. Save the big guns for last, so the blast will still be echoing when it comes time to vote. Madam Mayor, members of the council, I would like to address the situation if I may. Kat's tone was more respectful than he had thought possible. Reporters vying for lead story footage and front page shots made the already crowded room seem more so. The 7 council members looked up in anticipation, but whether it was for what Kat had to say or because her presence signaled an end to the long debate, Sam couldn't tell. The mayor nodded. I suspected you would. Thank you, Mayor McLeod. As you all know, I am Kathy Sherber-Danson, owner of the establishment that seems to have caused such commotion lately. An oddity in its history, since I have always tried to run a quiet establishment. We have heard many people speak here tonight, town residents and my employees alike, basing their arguments on First Amendment freedoms. But as I'm sure the esteemed members of the press joining us tonight can attest, she acknowledged the throng surrounding her. Those arguments are open to interpretation, so I'll just stick to the facts. Fact, I am well aware of the stigma some people attach to the brand of entertainment the Kit Kat Bar offers. To head off the concerns of my fellow small business owners and townspeople, I chose a location on the outskirts of the town's business loop, far from the center of commerce and residential areas, and I have strived to make it a respectable establishment. Barringer's snort stopped Kat's speech. She remained silent for a moment, breathing deeply. Sam realized how tightly she was reining in her emotions. He prayed she could hold on for a little while longer. She cleared her throat and fixed her stare on Barringer. A respectable establishment offering the adult community of Wilson a place to congregate and enjoy themselves. Fact, we've never been cited for admitting minors and to try and ensure that they don't even know about us. We've never called attention to ourselves. Kat's slight pause here had been rehearsed over and over again. Unless, of course, you count the drought 2 years ago when we let the mud in the ring dry up in a show of solidarity. The expected laughs came. Even the mayor grinned and covered her mouth. Lately, however, a lot of attention has been thrown our way, Kat continued, by a group calling itself the Rural Purity League. Leading this faction is council member Rex Barringer. It seems that Mr. Barringer has taken it upon himself to set the standards of decency for the people of this town. Surely there are many that agree with him, but I think tonight's meeting proves that many people also support the right to make their own decisions, to come to their own conclusions about what constitutes purity. Fact, Mr. Barringer's antics have called more attention to my little bar in the last few weeks than I have in the last 4 years. Fact, Mr. Barringer and his group have disrupted my establishment, have trespassed on private property with peaceful protests, and have committed acts of vandalism potentially dangerous to my patrons and my employees, as the police record will attest. Fact, Mr. Barringer has targeted my club in a very public witch hunt and has used his so-called crusade as a bully pulpit to launch his mayoral campaign. Kat's voice had risen an octave by the last sentence, and she paused to breathe once again. Barringer was a picture of serenity. No reason to get excited, Ms. Danson. It is this council's responsibility to address the concerns of the townspeople and ensure everyone has their say, whoever they may be. Mr. Barringer, I ask you to hold your comments until the speaker is finished, Mayor McLeod addressed Kat. Was there anything else, Ms. Danson? Kat nodded. Just one more thing. I know you will retire at the end of your term and that Mr. Barringer will likely take on your responsibilities. That is why I forced his hand and called for a vote tonight. My business license has your signature on it. My club operates under your authority. It is your leadership and the action of this council that have made Wilson a progressive, prosperous town. I urge you all to consider the legacy you wish to leave. Please don't let it be one of bigotry, fear, and ignorance. Thank you. Many members of the crowd stood and cheered. Sam was among them. It had gone as well as they could have hoped. But was it enough? He didn't feel a leap coming on. Order, please. The mayor rapped her gavel, silencing the crowd. Mr. Barringer, I believe you wish to speak? I would just like to agree with Ms. Danson on one point. This council has worked hard to make Wilson the place it has become, but we have built upon a foundation of positive ideals. I am merely striving to uphold those ideals. Before we vote, I urge my fellow council members to remember the words of Winston Churchill. Do not let spacious plans for a new world divert your energies from saving what is left of the old. If Ms. Danson chooses to label these energies as a witch hunt, that's her affair. I have confidence that the rest of you will see things in their proper light. This time, it was Barringer's contingent that cheered. Sam found himself admiring the man's persuasiveness even as he cursed it. If that is the end of the discussion, Mayor McLeod's voice rose above the crowd. I would like to call a slight throat clearing stopped her, and Sam turned to see Richard standing. You wish to address the council, sir? Richard nodded and approached the microphone. I'm Richard Danson, co-owner of the Kit Kat Bar. I hadn't planned to speak here tonight, but Mr. Barringer's quote reminded me of another string of words I heard a long time ago. He took a breath, and his voice issued forth in the same announcer's tone that Sam had first heard from him. He is an unprincipled and degenerate liar, but with a tremendous audience both in newspapers and on the airwaves. A man who has been able to fool vast numbers of people with his fake piety and false loyalty. Now, I don't recall who those words were aimed at, but I remember vividly when Senator McCarthy said them. He was another one who duped a lot of us way back when. The point I'm trying to make is that wrapping rotten intentions in fancy words, no matter how fitting those words may seem, doesn't make a bad idea any better. It just makes those who have the bad idea more dangerous. The hall ruminated in silence as Richard took his seat. If there was a better way to get the last word in, Sam couldn't think of it. Mayor McLeod spoke into the lull. Time to vote, ladies and gentlemen. Decision will be by secret ballot, as agreed. We have heard many constituents speak persuasively tonight. I ask you to make your decisions based on their wishes, not personal agendas. He couldn't say for sure, but Sam thought McLeod was in their corner. The hall was as quiet as a monastery while the council members made their decisions and passed them to the mayor. The tension made his teeth itch. The worst part of it was that he should already know the outcome. If he was ever able to get his hands on Al again. Ms. Myers, please verify these results. The clerk moved to the mayor's side, nodding at the papers gathered. So noted, McLeod continued. The council hereby revokes the business license of the Kit Kat Bar. 4 votes for, 3 against. The ruling is effective immediately. She banged her gavel to silence the cheers coming from the Rural Purity League's members. Ms. Danson, failure to act accordingly will result in fines, imprisonment, or both. Her tone was official, but her eyes told a different story. Kat remained silent as she and Richard left. The women from the club followed them. Sam watched in detached shock. He had followed all of his instincts, but they had betrayed him. What am I going to do now? What will happen to Sarah and the rest of them? Please, 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 God, bring Al back. The hoots coming from the other side of the room penetrated the haze. He was suddenly furious. You think you've won, don't you? Sam looked from the crowd to Barringer. How he wanted to punch the smug smirk off the man's face. Truth is, we all lost. Nobody should be proud of what went on here tonight. He made his way into the cool evening, shoving reporters out of his way. Kyle watched from his perch in the back of the hall as Blondie stalked out. He would bet his benefits package that her soundbite would make the opening of every newscast in town. He could almost hear all of the producers within 30 miles yelling, Eureka, when that little nugget made it onto tape. The hall seemed much larger after the exodus. The council's comments took on a godlike quality, echoing off the vaulted ceiling. Barringer certainly looked the part, sitting back in his oversized chair and staring down his nose at his fellow council members. He led the discussion as much as he could without being overtly controlling, Kyle noticed. The reporter had a good idea why. If Nancy's tips had been right, and he had no reason for doubt, the real story was yet to come. It'll work just as well to drown our sorrows as it would have to celebrate with, Kat said, popping open a bottle of champagne. The cork's flight to freedom was cut short by the roof. It ricocheted and landed at Sam's feet. I know just how you feel, he murmured as he picked it up. Come now, ladies, drink up. None of us have to get up for work in the morning, after all. Some of the girls let out a half-hearted laugh as the champagne glasses were passed around. Sam declined his and threw the cork at the streamers hanging from the ceiling. He had been so sure. What now? The Kyle and Tawny situation still needed to be resolved. But what if that wasn't it either? Let's go, Candy, Cat cajoled. We may have lost, but like you said, it was on our own terms. We couldn't ask for anything more. I want to thank you for that. Glasses were raised and all eyes turned to Sam. What could he say? I guess that will have to be good enough, even if it means living the rest of my life as Candy Apple. What happens next? Next, you all get 2 months severance pay and we go our separate ways. Richard and I discussed this possibility earlier, and we decided not to stay if it came down to this. It's just a matter of principle now. Screw this town. Kat's plastic glass wrapped off her husband's, and she quaffed what was left. Sam's chest suddenly felt as if a small mammal were trying to burrow out of it. His instincts hadn't been right before, but he somehow knew that if Kat acted on her last remark, he would never leap. His mind whirled in panic, discarding one idea after another. What then? I figure out what to do with the rest of my life. Any thoughts on what? Kat shrugged. Open up a new place in a new town, maybe. Crusade to save the drive-in. Who knows? Sam finally found an idea solid enough to grasp, but he doubted it would keep him afloat for long. Stupid, yes. But what the hell do I have to lose? You talked about sticking to your principles before, Sam said. How far are you prepared to go to do that? Kat shrugged. As far as I'm able, I guess, until there's nothing left I can do. I think I reached that point earlier tonight. Maybe so, Sam said. But then again, maybe not. You may just have to set your sights a little higher. What do you mean? How does Mayor Sherber Danson sound?
Ooh. Dun, dun, dun.
Mayor McLeod of the Clan McLeod.
Yeah. Again, I just wrote these names. I never thought I'd have to read them. McLeod. Yeah. So,
thanks, Damon, for saving me. I appreciate it.
yeah,
Great
great job, Damon.
Yeah,
Great
yeah.
job.
Called a little bit longer.
Chris, I wonder, when you were writing the book, were you given notes on like what they were establishing the lore of was for the novel series? Because I'm noticing there's a bit that's different in the books in that chapter in particular than to the TV series, and I'm wondering what notes they might have given you to.
There really wasn't. I mean, especially at that point, Ginger knew that anyone writing these books was going to be more of a fan than anything else, and we would know the minutia of the lore inside and out, and Sam's family and stuff like that. So, what's your concern with that?
Oh, okay. Well, just a couple of things. In a lot of this is Sam worrying about not leaping, but this is well after even Sammy Joe being in the series. So I think that was at the stage where they decided success had nothing to do with leaping.
Yeah, I always found that to be bullshit. I mean, that was just honestly, that was just a retcon so that Don could write the JFK episode.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I agree with you. Yeah. But we did see more fails after that too. So
so that's part of the series that I chose to ignore.
Yeah, that's fair. And also the one part with I actually really liked the conversation you wrote between Katie and Sam, the memory that he had. It's suggesting Sam's remembering his life from before he started leaping, because also at this stage Tom would have been alive. So
yeah, and that to me was a dramatic choice. Like, it didn't even occur to me that this was after he had saved Tom until I think Nancy Henderson might have, well, maybe Ruth Calkins pointed it out to me. And I said, you know what, you're right. But artistically, in the moment, that's where Sam needed to be. Yeah. And it fit in. And I really enjoyed writing that scene between him and Katie about how his mom was suffering and lonely and stuff like that. So it had parody. And it gave Sam a little bit more empathy for Tawny, and he was able to see it from her perspective in a way that I felt made it a nice moment for fans.
Yeah, and I mean, I actually artistically like it a lot too. It kind of backs up what I always thought, how both Sam and Al, they really must remember all the timelines that are going on. Sam has an advantage of being Swiss cheese, but I mean, part of the reason why Sam would have leapt in the first place, I think, is due to Tom dying and that injustice being something leading to him wanting to make the world a better place. So I think it would make sense with that being so intrinsic to him wanting to leap, that is something that would stay with him even after the history changes around him. Yeah,
True.
it's just I thought it was just something interesting worth pointing out.
And, there's really no wrong answer or right answer, quite frankly, because when you think about it, there was precedence for Sam forgetting the original history in Leap for Lisa when St. John came in, and Sam, towards the end of that, says, I'm forgetting him. I can't forget him.
Yeah.
So it shows you that, and that was probably just for the drama of the episode. But at the same time, it establishes that maybe when Sam does change something, that's the way he'll always remember it.
Yeah, and
either way, I think you could make an argument either way.
Yeah. Well, what was the name of the episode where he was the bank robber and it was Christmas time?
That Promised Land.
Promised Land. Yeah, because I remember someone in there asked him, "Have you ever lost someone?" And Sam's like, "Yeah, I did, but I got him back." So he must have. So he must remember losing Tom, or at least knowing that had happened somewhere along the way. But obviously,
They must remember both timelines. Yeah.
He actually said that rebel without a clue. I might have
okay.
lost him and then got him back. Yeah.
Stacy from Korman Productions says, figure Sam would have memories of both timelines. So even if this wasn't his current history, the memory would stick with him. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Gotcha.
All right. I had a question, Chris, about chapter 8 from chapter 8.
Yeah.
You said there was a radio in the prison cell. What type of radio did you picture?
I did not collect radios at that point, but here I'm going to show you. Here, this is probably appropriate.
Hopefully, we're in pants.
She had a Westinghouse.
Oh wow, that's so cool!
Oh,
what
yeah.
year is that?
Nice.
60, 62?
A little Westie. That's what I call this radio. I'm not in mic here. I call
What
this
year
radio
is that from?
My Westie. I honestly don't remember. It's
I'm gonna
from
say
the
s-
60s.
Is it anachronistic?
Early 60s.
Yeah, it's early 60s. It's radio. I found this. Someone was ready to throw it away. I found it at a yard sale. I gave the guy $3 for it.
Oh, my goodness.
It was covered in nicotine and
Oh yeah. Did you have to do the bright thing and get it all bleached, kind of?
yeah. I mean, I worked like hell to clean this radio up, and then I even replaced the transistors so that it plays.
Wow, that is so cool. I didn't see that one while we were there.
Yep. So it was the first one to hand. If there was another one to hand, that would have been the one in the cell. I don't know.
I saw an interesting video about prison tech and how it has to be clear, so you can't hide anything like inside of a TV or a radio or something.
Yeah, oh wow. No, I mean, I don't even know if Amory would have been able to have a radio in the thing. It was just so that they could put in the line about Sam playing.
Yeah, she would have, because I'm pretty sure in prisons they can be given things like radios and TVs for good behavior.
And yeah, maybe I did read that in the book that I read when I was doing the research. So one way or another.
Yeah.
Again, a lot of this stuff is just for the narrative convenience and the art of it. And sometimes, reality can take a backseat to that if art has its own demands. Basically, fiction has its own demands. So
yeah, better a good story, a better story than correct facts, right?
An accurate one.
Accurate.
Never let the truth get in the way of a good story.
That's what I was looking for.
There you
Thank
go.
you
And
so
I
much.
tried to be as accurate as I could with a lot of the stuff in here.
Yeah,
So
that's
You
great.
did good.
Yeah, it's
You did
great.
Really good.
It's really good. And page 100, you put Serenity's name in there.
did I?
Yeah. How
Yeah.
cool is that?
Serenity.
It says Serenity.
Serenity now.
Yep, we popped for that one, definitely.
Awesome.
Good job. Good job.
Next time when I do a second edition of this, I'm going to capitalize the S.
Exactly. It should always be capitalized.
Mhm.
I always do, no matter how I use it. Is this the last chapter tonight, or is there two more?
There
What
are
we
two
doing?
more. We got to go to 120 if we have
Two
the
more?
time.
Okay, so
actually,
we're
yeah,
chapter 10
sorry.
and chapter 11 we're going to read.
Yeah,
And
I've got to get going because I've got to get to some
All right.
appointments.
thank you so
But,
much. Aiden.
thanks for having me, and I'll come back later and watch the video on YouTube as I read along. So,
All right, sounds good.
Yeah.
Thank you so
so we're
much.
back on same time next week, is it, or are we doing?
We're
something
doing one of them is a Friday, I believe, right, Chris?
it's going to be a
Which-
Friday. I have an opera next week, so I'm going to be in the city all day Saturday. I don't
So it'll
think
be
I'm
a
going to be
Friday
home in
night.
time for 8 o'clock.
We'll figure it out.
Yeah.
See you next time, Hayden.
Thank
Bye,
you.
Hayden.
All right.
Thanks for the read.
Yeah,
Bye.
thanks for having me.
Bye.
I'll be back next time.
All right, I'll be back.
See you later.
All right.
No, you hang up. Okay, cool.
You hang up.
So I want to finish our reading tonight with Chris reading it. So maybe Damon, you take this chapter as well. And before you
Yeah,
do, I
okay.
want to remind everyone that the QR code on the screen is for Matt Dale's family. Send them some funds for the holidays. This is the month of Matt, and that's why we're doing this. 4 different live readings of Foreknowledge, and also a couple extra special things.
Yep.
So be on the lookout and make sure you're subscribed. You got alerts turned on so you can see all those things. But the most important part is give what you can to Matt's family so they can have a little bit of a better holiday. And so everyone's been so gracious so far, and I really appreciate it. And thank you from the bottom of my heart. Makes me feel good that people are still looking out for Matt's family, even now. So give all you can. And it's QR code on the screen. That'll take you there. Or just Google Matt Dale, GoFundMe, all one word. Okay, Damon, the next chapter is yours. And then we'll finish the night out with
right.
our home run hitter, the author of the book, Christopher DeFilippis. So, Damon, before we start, tell people where they can find you, because I know you got a podcast.
Yeah.
Phantom Entanglement, is it?
Fandom Entanglement.
That's it.
It's YouTube at Fandom Entanglement. I'm blanking on stuff. I'm a little tired, but
That's
I believe
okay.
that's it. Yeah, and we have our Facebook group too. You do a search for it. We should be there. Yeah, I'm not really on much social media outside of Facebook, or I don't do the X or anything like that. So
YouTube.
Yeah, but YouTube.
You're the
at
famous
Fandom.
Damon with the Sliders podcast.
right.
Yes. Which you both have to come on and
Yep.
do.
I was on once, but I was a little
yeah.
glitchy. I think because I was in the 60s
Yeah.
or 70s, 60s.
And
Yeah.
if memory serves, Damon also joined Matt and me on an episode of QLP. It was for the season 1,
That's
towards
right.
the season 1 finale, right?
Was Ben Interrupted?
Right.
I joined you on.
Oh,
yeah.
there you go. Yep.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
that's awesome.
Yeah.
All right. Thank you so much, Damon. And chapter 10 is all yours.
All right.
Thank you.
Chapter 10. Okay. Anne-Marie had been wearing her best smile so long it was beginning to hurt. Control, just a while longer. The men and women assembled at the long table in front of her shuffled their papers, returning the bulky sheaves to order. The man seated in the center looked down one side, then the other, before nodding and returning his attention to her. It is the decision of this committee, Ms. Rennery, that early release be denied. Denied again. Calm. May I ask why, Mr. Martinek? Stupid little prick. As you can see, my record has been exemplary. I haven't gotten a charge sheet in years. All you have done, Ms. Rennery, is behave in the manner expected of you or any other inmate in this facility. Calm. Keep smiling. But it's only 1 year. Surely my good behavior counts for something. We are well aware of the extent of your sentence, Ms. Rennery, as we are of your record. The weasel pushed his glasses higher onto the bridge of his nose and steepled his hands in front of him. But to put it bluntly, this committee feels you are getting off lightly as it is. You plea bargained your way into a state facility for a federal offense. Your sentence was reduced for your initial cooperation, not my cooperation, with the authorities in helping to apprehend your partners in crime. We would be remiss in reducing it further. You will not serve a day less than the 10 years the judge decreed. He motioned to the guard, signaling the end of the conversation. Another time, an earlier time, Anne-Marie would have been seething at the casual, matter-of-fact manner Martinek used when decreeing her fate. But she had experienced it enough by now to know further argument would be pointless, so the false smile remained as she let the guard escort her out of the room. 1 more year, 1 more year, 1 more year. The thought echoed with each stride. It wasn't really the specter of another year on the inside that consumed her. That was old hat at this point. She could do it in her sleep. What it really meant was another year where she couldn't get to him. 1 more year with him getting off scot-free. And all the while, those prize morons with their polyester ties and $10 shoes kept going on and on about justice as they saw it. She could choke on the irony. Which was the greater injustice? I'll take her from here, Joey. The guard nodded, and she was handed off to Tibor. Is that it?
Tibber.
Tibor?
Tibber is
Tibber.
how I always pronounce it in my head.
Okay. Okay. The guard nodded as she was handed off to Tibber. Good afternoon, Mr. Tibber, she said as pleasantly as she could. My, Rennery, Tibber chortled. Aren't we polite? What, did the parole board scare some civility into you? Or was it your girlfriend, Robbins? It's a shame. I miss the little chats we used to have. But I'm warning you, these May-December flings usually end pretty badly. Don't let her break your heart. Control. Anne-Marie willed herself to remain silent. She wanted to smack the fat bastard in his moronic grin, but she would not do anything to risk tacking more time onto her sentence. He means nothing. You have bigger game to hunt. A few piercing bells and 2 stupid comments later, she was alone in her cell. The picture of the bird lady greeted her as she entered. The rendering was appropriate considering what the woman had called herself. Her large eyes rested atop a hooked beak opened in mid-squawk. The plumage cresting her forehead completed the image. Polly want a cracker? Anne-Marie turned her laughter to the picture taped next to Bird Woman's. It was the latest edition, and it was her favorite. Bloody sockets were all that were left of Mirror Man's eyes. He was straining against the straps that held him to the bed as multiple bird women gouged chunks of flesh from his body. You've bought yourself another year, Mr. Mad Scientist, she turned, addressing the other pictures papering her cell. Drawing him had become as mindless as doodling. She had done it so often. Each sketch was a reminder. Each meant that much more power. Well, enjoy yourself. My turn will come soon enough. Who are you talking to? Anne-Marie stopped her circuit when Evangeline crossed her vision. Her neighbor stood in the doorway looking uneasily at the images tacked all over. No one. Come in. Evangeline made no move to enter. How did the hearing go? The usual. You're stuck with me for another year. How'd the physical go? About how you'd expect. Like I need him telling me I got tired old bones. Evangeline's remark fell flat with the apprehension in her tone. Just as long as I'm stuck with you for another year. Anne-Marie waved her friend forward. Will you come in already? Why don't we play in my cell instead? Why? I just thought it might be a nice change. Did you see the new memo Ward posted last? Don't change the subject. What's the problem? Truth is, Evangeline hesitated. Geez, you look like you're in pain. Will you just say what's on your mind? Okay. Evangeline stepped in and closed the cell door partway. But remember, I say this as a concerned friend. Truth is, you're starting to frighten me. Ever since that night we called up Elegba, you've been getting stranger and stranger. Woo-hoo-hoo! Anne-Marie waved her hands above her head and stomped toward Evangeline. You found me out. The evil nature demon has possessed me. Join us, Evangeline. Join us. Anne-Marie trailed off into a laugh. Evangeline didn't join in. I mean it, girl. This ain't no joke. Sometimes you seem positively touched. How so? Well, for one, you were just spinning yourself dizzy talking to walls. Her eyes fell on the image Anne-Marie had been studying. And look at this. It's disgusting. It's just downright disturbing is what it is. Anne-Marie moved in front of the picture instinctively, protectively. I'm only doing what you told me to, finding a focus, taking it day by day. I said to find something constructive, child, not this. She threw her arms out from her sides. This is what I've been looking for all these years. I finally know the reason I'm here. It's like I told you. Yes, the blue room and the mirror. But I worry that you're not remembering properly. Something certainly happened that crawled underneath your skin. I don't doubt that. But strange folks switching bodies with you, it's just not... Evangeline stopped herself, lowering her eyes. Go ahead, finish. It's not sane, you were going to say. I don't mean it that way. Please believe me. All I mean is maybe you should talk to someone about it. Someone besides me. Just look around you, girl. She tore down one of the many pictures. This ain't healthy. You're obsessed with someone that could be nothing more than a haunt prowling around in your head. That's not true. Elegba showed me, like you promised. Anne-Marie crossed her arms. You're calling your god a liar now? Evangeline shook her head. Not at all. How dare you even suggest it? But sometimes he doesn't tell us things straight out. You got one bit of knowledge, but are you using it in the right way? As my daddy would say, the difference between a wise man and a fool ain't the amount of knowledge they have, but how they use what they got. Well, it's the only bit I have, and I'm using it to pull myself up, to lead me out. If that seems strange to you, then maybe you're the crazy one. There's a saying where I come from, too. Knowledge is power. For the first time in years, I feel like I'm back in control, and I'm certainly not going to any prison shrink when I'm this close to getting out. And if that doesn't jibe with the notions of your dead daddy, then to hell with him, and to hell with you. Anne-Marie! Anne-Marie could hear the hurt in her friend's voice, but she had crossed the line. A step back would be weakness. I mean it, child. Is there any pleasing you? All along I've done everything you've told me to. I trusted you. And what happens? You come in here and call me crazy. Maybe the problem isn't with me at all. Maybe you're the one who's crazy. You have to keep that damn smile plastered on your face. Keep up the cheery fucking attitude no matter what, because you have nothing left to look forward to. You're going to die in this shithole. But I'm going back to the world, back to normal life. I know you're upset, Evangeline said, anger shading her words, but that's no reason to act such a save it. Would you please just spare me for once? Let me tell you a saying my father was fond of. Anne-Marie pulled the cell door open and pushed the other woman out. It was tell your story, walking. Now get the hell out of my sight. She slammed the door on Evangeline's next comment. You don't need her. Right, to hell with her. You don't need anybody. Nobody. Except... Anne-Marie caressed the nearest image of the mirror man. The morning bell shattered Anne-Marie's uneasy sleep. Her entire body felt clammy and her mouth tasted like ashes. Fuzzy images melted away as she shook off her grogginess. The same images were responsible for her restless night, and for once they had nothing to do with her strange experience. Evangeline was at the root of them, an emptiness. The events of the previous day crushed down upon her. Stupid, stupid, stupid. Her open palm met her forehead repeatedly as she let out a string of curses, damning herself. What had possessed her? It was like another person had taken up residence in her head and pulled the strings controlling her mouth. What have I done? No voice rose to answer. But the night's twisted images were answer enough. She'd alienated the one person to whom she owed everything. She was on her feet and out on the block in the next instant. She had to apologize to make things right again. It wasn't a question of weakness, it was one of sanity. Evangeline wasn't with the other women forming ranks for the march to breakfast. Her cell door stood slightly ajar, automatically unlocked with the ringing of the bell. She was still inside, getting ready. Even better, no one else had to see Anne-Marie eat crow. She pushed the door open, but the cell was quiet. Evangeline lay on her cot, face to the wall, head propped on her hand. She didn't turn toward Anne-Marie. For her not to show even the most rudimentary courtesy, Anne-Marie knew her friend had to be extremely angry. Anne-Marie closed the door behind her. Evangeline, I'm sorry. I didn't mean it. I don't know what came over me. It was just the pressure, the strain of knowing, but still not knowing. It's starting to take a toll. But I never meant to hurt you. Can you forgive me? Nothing. Evangeline, please. I know they sound like excuses to you, but you're the only real friend I've ever had. I need that. I need you. I can't bear the thought of what it would have been like in here without you to help me. Still nothing. Anne-Marie sat on the edge of the bunk, having trouble getting the words around the lump forming in her windpipe. Please talk to me, even if it's just to say you hate me. She gently shook her friend's shoulder. I need to hear your... The words caught in Anne-Marie's throat as Evangeline's body rolled toward her, stiff, complexion ashen, arms still crooked at the elbow, bald hand still pressed against her cheek. Evangeline? She shook harder. Evangeline, wake up! She began throttling her friend's corpse. Wake up! Wake up! Wake up! Each syllable accompanied a push down, a pull up, both words and movements becoming more frantic. She let out a wail and clutched Evangeline to her. No! Please, God, no! The cell door burst open. For Christ's sake, what's all the shrieking going on in here? Ward barreled her way into the cramped quarters, Tibber only a half step behind. Both stopped short. Anne-Marie rocked Evangeline back and forth, crying softly into her hair. God bless her. Watch over her. Please, God, please. Ward laid a gentle hand on her shoulder. She was almost 80, Anne-Marie. It was just a matter of time. The sincere tone was lost to Anne-Marie. Rock back and forth, back and forth. You're with Thomas now. You're Thomas, your baby. Bring her home, Thomas. Bring her. The words dissolved into sobs. Tibber pried her arms away and led her back to her cell, closing the door gently as he left. She didn't know how long she lay on her bed weeping before she dragged herself to her feet. She splashed some cool water into her swollen eyes, washed the saltiness from her cheeks, and prayed that Evangeline could hear her and forgive. Please, God, let her hear me. Stop kidding yourself. Shut up. Wherever she is, she knows I'm sorry. She's dead and she died hating you. She died cursing your name. No, that's not true. Weakling. Idiot. Face it, you killed her. Anne-Marie squeezed her hands to her ears, frustration rising with the voices. No, be quiet. Murderer. She cried aloud and her eyes fell on the sketches on the wall. He was there, staring back at her from every direction, silent, menacing. You. This is all your fault. You killed her. Anne-Marie attacked the face in front of her, shredding it with her nails, shredding her fingertips on the stone wall beneath. You're the murderer, not me. You. Blood smeared the lead. Red haze obscured her sight. Red hate filled the voices. Strength, power, will. Vengeance, child, vengeance.
Ooh. Thank you for reading that chapter. I was crying my eyes out when I wrote that chapter.
Yeah, that was kind of rough.
Yeah. Wow.
Man. only not even
It's
halfway
still
through
getting
the
me
book.
now. I'm kind of choked up.
Only halfway through the book, and you get attached to the characters.
Yeah.
For real.
No, just
Yeah.
the whole thing with the Thomas part of it.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Anyway.
Yeah.
Woo. Okay.
Okay.
We are going bankrupt soon, but before we do that, thank you, Damon. That was amazing.
Thanks. You're
Got to
welcome.
remind people why we're here and tell us about the giveaway. Chris, do your thing that you do.
Yeah. So we're raising money for Matt's family. So click on that or take a picture of that QR code. It'll take you to the GoFundMe page where you can donate to the cause. And for all of you who are watching, who are commenting, those of you who are donating, everybody's going to be in the running for a giveaway. It'll be a copy of Foreknowledge that is signed by me and personalized any way you want it to be. And hopefully you'll get as much enjoyment out of it as I'm getting out of it now, 30 years after having written it and finally reading it for the first time. And God, I don't know how long. So
Wow.
it's been a real trip, but I'm happy to do this in memory of my good friend Matt. I mean, there's a picture of him right there behind me. It's from his memorial service. And I was thinking about it this morning, and I guess he's been on my mind a lot lately, especially because we're doing this for him. But honestly, there's not a day that goes by where I don't think about Matt in some capacity. I mean, he just was such an integral part of all of our lives, and I miss him. I miss him every day. And I'm just glad that we're able to maybe have a platform where we can do something for his family and continue to honor his legacy and his memory, especially in Quantum Leap fandom, because his fandom was unparalleled.
Yeah. I was going through, I don't know if you guys saw the edited version of last week's Foreknowledge reading, but the first couple minutes is just like archival footage of Matt that wasn't released before, just little silly stuff. And I'm going through, I think we recorded something like over 180 hours, something like that, Chris. It tells us when we sign on. And a lot of it's Matt, and so I'm watching through like the before the interviews and after the interviews and different things. And,
Yeah, he really took the lead. Both you and him took the lead in interviewing most of the guest cast for QL 2022. And without his dedication, his organization, we wouldn't have had half the, I guess you would call it documentation of really everything that went into the new Quantum Leap. He had that as researched as he did the Legacy series. And I know it was all in preparation for him to write a second edition of the second volume of Beyond the Mirror Image. So, yeah. There'll never be another like him.
Woo. Okay, so that QR code up there, use your phone, go to take a picture of it. A link will come up. It's in one of the corners. It was up above Chris last time. We'll see where it is this time. And or Google Matt Dale GoFundMe and give what you can. And also, we are accepting super chats and stickers and dollar bills in our G strings from Mud Wrestling.
Hit that thumbs up button. Tell everybody you know.
Yep. Like it, share it. You might not have enough to donate right now, and that's very understandable. But somebody and sees a share you do might be very willing and able to help out. So anything you can do, I really appreciate it. Christopher DeFilippis, bring us home. We got runners on first, second, and third, and we need you to play cleanup. Okay.
It's the first thing an athlete does. He puts on his reading glasses.
Exactly.
Okay.
Meanwhile, I had to take mine
11,
off
Chris.
because I'm like farsighted, nearsighted, farsighted now, so I have to take it off when I read.
Wow.
I'm medium-sighted.
That's
Is
how
that
I
weird?
am. Yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah, I
It's
just
hard to
started
find
wearing
glasses.
these, Damon, and it's
Yeah.
funny. I can read without them, but for some reason, the words are going blurry as I'm reading aloud. I
Yeah.
guess I'm a little nervous. So,
Me too. More.
all right, chapter
you.
11.
Woo!
Meanwhile, back at the project, Tina's lower half dangled out of the service conduit, short skirt straining around her thighs. Al leaned against the opposite wall, puffed contentedly on his cigar, and enjoyed the way her stockings fitted her calves. For the first time in days, he forgot to be worried. 4 days of hunting, 4 days of diagnostics, 4 days of feeling useless, peering over the rim of this coffee mug as technicians gave Ziggy the workout of her life. Tina squirmed backwards, high-heeled feet stretching for the floor. Al took a last longing look before pulling her out. He rubbed at the smudge of grease decorating the end of her nose as she brushed her tangled red locks out of her eyes. Well, nothing. I've been through every square inch of this mainframe. The hardware's like not the problem. Well, Gushy says it's not the software either. He had said it enough times, as a matter of fact, to give Al fond remembrances of the oxygen mask in his jet. The stink of the man's breath lingered in his nostrils and clung to his clothes. He would probably have to burn one of his favorite shirts if the third wash didn't do the trick. So where does that leave us? And Sam? Tina pursed her lower lip in thought, gloss catching the reflection of Al's blinking lapel pin. He hoped it would be a long thought. Maybe we're like looking too hard. The problem could be simpler than we think. How so? Well, we've eliminated the possibilities of structural damage or program failure, right? So it has to be something else. Her face brightened in the way that made Al's insides burn, and she took off down the corridor. Come on! Al trailed behind, wondering how she could manage that speed in those shoes. By the time he caught up to her in the control room, she was kicking a pair of white-clad legs sticking out from beneath the main console. Gushy, come out here. I think I got it. You too, Fuller. Front and center. Samantha joined them as the head programmer pulled himself to a sitting position and rubbed at his shins. Simple words would have sufficed, my dear. What is it, Tina? Samantha waved at the smoke issuing from Al's cigar with a scowl. At least he thought that's what she was waving. Okay. At least he thought she was waving at the smoke. Gushy had stood up directly opposite her. Well, I think we've been banging our heads against the wall for no reason. When you guys do work on your laptops and try to process a lot of data, the system will hesitate for a little while, right? When it's finished, things start working at normal speed. Gushy shook his head. I know what you're getting at, but nothing could keep Ziggy locked up like this. Once again, Gushy shook his head. I know what you're getting at, but nothing could keep Ziggy locked up for this long. Her programming's too sophisticated. I think she may be right, Samantha said. And the proof's been staring us in the face the whole time, but we didn't see it. See what? Al was ready to do some kicking of his own, only it wouldn't be the shins he aimed for. What are you people getting at? Look there. All eyes followed Samantha's raised arm to the orb suspended on the opposite wall. That thing usually gives a better light show than a Pink Floyd concert. Gushy cocked his head away from the interface and looked askance at Samantha. Pink what? Floyd. They're a rock and roll band that... Never mind the music lesson, Alice shot. What are... Rock and roll, Gushy piped up. Like the Dave Clark 5? Well, not exactly. Yes, exactly. Al overrode Sammy Joe's comment, fixing Gushy with a stare. Just like a Dave Clark 5 song, that thing is usually very light and very, very sparkly. How out of touch could this man be? Well, of course it is. Gushy shook his head and spoke to Al in a tone usually reserved for confused 5-year-olds. But they're not just sparks. That's the main structural processing interface where Ziggy's electrical impulses are channeled through her neurochips. Impulses, Samantha cut in, that are barely moving now. We all assumed it was a result of system damage, but I think Tina could be right. Al was beginning to understand. What usually looked like an electric cyclone was no more than a drizzle. Are you saying she bit off more than she can chew? In a way, Tina said. There's probably nothing wrong with the system at all. It's simply busy. Very busy. So what can we do? All eyes fell on Gushy. The little man cringed slightly under the scrutiny, eyes darting from side to side. If that is the case, then there's nothing we can do, short of rebooting her. If we attempt that, whatever she's working on will be lost. I also don't know what effect it will have on our link to Dr. Beckett. We may lose him for good. Albert cleaned through the... Okay, that's the name of the cigar, by the way. Albert cleaned through his Chevello. Terrific. He spit the tip into his palm. There has to be something. Maybe we can feed her more information or something. Gushy shook his head. Won't work unless we can find out what the problem she's caught up in. Won't work unless we can find out what problem she's caught up in. And there's no way to do that unless she tells us. Anne-Marie Ranieri. The words popped into Al's head and tumbled out of his mouth before he was even conscious of saying them. Old age is catching up to you, Calavici. Al threw a cigar down in disgust and spit out bits of tobacco. It has something to do with Anne-Marie Ranieri. That would be my guess too, Gushy said. Wasn't that our last visitor? Yes, and before things went completely caca, Ziggy kept harping on her. She was saying something about getting conflicting histories. That's impossible, Sammy Joe said in the same tone her father might use, Al thought. That's exactly what Sam said, Al replied, and that's why Gushy and me didn't worry about it too much. We just figured it was witness relocation or something giving her a hard time. Well, my vote is for or something, Samantha said. Al, if we are dealing with the onset of a conflict in time, the implications are enormous. More enormous than your species is capable of fully comprehending, Dr. Fuller. Every head snapped toward the glowing ball on the other side of the room. The electrical impulses were bathing the control room with their chaotic patterns once again. Ziggy, what the hell is going on? You were right, Admiral. The problem lies with Anne-Marie Ranieri. She is causing a... How can I put this colloquially? You humans seem to like using the word glitch. She is causing a glitch in the space-time continuum. Huh? I have been occupied in codifying data I have been receiving from a dimensional divergence that has arisen since Miss Ranieri returned to her own time. Al's sudden chill was caused by much more than the computer's cool tone. And this divergence is being caused by the murder of Dr. Beckett. Time to review what we know, people. Al paced around the conference room, sweat gathering under his arms. He turned his attention to Beeks. We need to know everything about Anne-Marie. You were the only one who had any real contact with her, Verbena. Assessment. I barred access to the waiting room with good reason. Verbena passed around folders containing copies of Anne-Marie's psychological profile. The second she got here, she was extremely volatile, as Dr. Fuller can attest. We had to sedate her right away. I'd say that she was one of the most unstable visitors we've ever had, including Leon Stiles. The only difference between the two was that she didn't have a gun. She couldn't have been that bad, Al said, absently patting his ribs. They still twinged whenever he took a deep breath. In certain ways, she was worse, Verbena replied. Stiles' violent behavior could be attributed to a history of neglect compounded by a chemical imbalance. Anne-Marie, on the other hand, had no solid basis for her behavior that I was able to see. In tabloid terms, she was a classic case of the good girl gone bad. Based on what Ziggy could dig up, all factors pointed to an upper middle class upbringing with a stable family life. She even has a degree in art history. That's what makes cases like hers so enigmatic. Let's cut to the chase, Verbena, Al said more testily than he wanted to. What could drive her to murder? There are no deep psychological mysteries here. She was a very greedy, self-centered individual. And by self-centered, I don't mean conceited. She shaped her whole world outlook on the basis that she was the most important thing in the universe. Everything else came second. That's why seeing Sam's reflection in the mirror was so traumatic for her. It threw her belief system a curve, for being aside. And I bet that's what created the problem we're facing now. We planted a time bomb, and there's no telling how or when it could go off. That is incorrect, Dr. Beeks, Ziggy replied serenely. As I said before, events are unfolding that lead to the murder of Dr. Beckett. Gushy looked up from his folder. Are you implying, Dr. Beeks, that she has gained a foreknowledge of the project and is using murder to counteract the changes Dr. Beckett made in her life? Verbena shook her head. I think that's giving her too much credit. She doesn't know much about the project, and I never told her about the time travel aspect. No, I'd say the most likely scenario is that she has regained her late memory in some way. It's foreknowledge of a sort, I suppose, but I doubt she thinks of it in those terms. She's more likely driven by revenge. Okay, so we've established motive, Al said. But what I don't understand is, if she does murder Sam, won't it have already taken place from our perspective? Wouldn't the change have been instantaneous the second she leaped back? It's not that simple, Al, Samantha said. That's been bothering me as well, but we're dealing with a lot of variables here, all of which must be decided in order for a new timeline to take root. The easiest example I can think of is Dr. Beckett's leaps. If changes in the continuum were instantaneous, then we would know the ultimate outcome of his actions the very second he arrived in a particular time and place. Instead, we deal with percentages based on countless variances in probability. Those variances are the reason we're all still here. Al's head was swimming in an attempt to digest it all. So we're coasting along on a slice of probability that's shrinking with each passing minute. Terror snaked its way up Al's spine like a choking vine. His primary concern was saving his best friend, and Sammy Jo Fuller for that matter. If Sam was killed, nature would snip her out of the pattern like a botched seam. But try as he might, He couldn't suppress the other, cowardly thought whispering to him from the recesses of his mind. He knew all too well how his life would have turned out without Sam. He had already trod far down the road of alcoholism before Sam provided a detour. He would have been dead by this point without the project, or worse, a pathetic old drunk that everyone pitied. We need to act, people. I'm open to suggestions. The first thing we need to do is find the time and place of the murder, Samantha said. How about it, Ziggy? The fluctuation of the time stream has prevented me from ascertaining that information, Dr. Fuller. How long will it take for you to find out? Unknown. Ziggy, I don't want to hear another word from you until you can tell us where to focus our efforts. There was no hint of Al in that tone. Admiral Calavici had taken over. Take all but the most vital systems offline if you need to. If I don't get an answer by sunrise, you won't have to wait for an alternate timeline to do you in. I'll find the socket you're connected to and plug you myself. The lights in the conference room dimmed immediately. Al nodded with satisfaction and addressed the others. Once we find out where and when, what's our next step? 2 possibilities, Samantha said. First, we figure out if any of Dr. Beckett's previous sleeps correspond with that point in time. If so, we may be able to find some way to modify the imaging chamber's programming to lock onto him at said point and have him stop the event himself. Gushy, can you do that? I may be able to find some theoretical foundation to support the idea, Gushy answered, but I don't think we'll have much luck. I don't care, Al said. Get to work on it. Tina, you too. If the imaging chamber needs to be modified to get it done, tear it down and start from the bottom up if you have to. Keep me posted. Dismissed. Gushy and Tina practically ran from the room, throwing ideas back and forth before they reached the door. What's our other option? Al asked Samantha. One of us leaps to stop her. Al considered. Before we go any further on that idea, we need to get committee approval. He loathed the thought of trying to explain all of this to Weitzman, but it was a necessary evil. He might have a chance with McBride. She was pretty sharp. It struck Al that she was another one whose life would change if Sam were killed. The negative ripples kept spreading further and further from the center. There was no way of telling when they would stop, if ever. If I'm going to face them, I need to shower and get into my uniform. Set up a satellite link and patch it through to my quarters as soon as you can. Samantha Fuller was out the door, with Al on her heels, before Beeks cleared her throat loudly enough to stop him. Aren't you forgetting one thing, Admiral? What? Sam. He hasn't had any contact in days. Al slapped his forehead and grimaced. Geez, what a stunad. How could I forget? Still, he'll have to wait just a bit longer. The committee will be online in too short a time for me to do him much good. Look, dig some odds out of Ziggy and prepare a brief for me. Sam was saying something about a town council meeting when I last saw him. He may have the problem solved by now, but if he doesn't, I want to go to him with every possible option. An instant later, he was in his quarters, out of his clothes, and taking the naviest of Navy showers. He might not mind McBride catching him in a towel, but Weitzman was a different story. As it was, he only had time to get into the top half of his uniform before his computer blipped at him. He sat down in his skivvies, feeling like a dumb Anchorman joke as he assessed the link. The screen was divided into 4 smaller screens. He was going to give Sammy Joe a big kiss for contacting only those members absolutely necessary to make this decision. Maybe this would be easier than he expected. Then again, maybe not. A closer look at Senators Weitzman, McBride, Turner, and Diliberto revealed a bleary-eyed and none too happy bunch. This better be good, Calavici, Weitzman said, absently rubbing at a bandage on his cheek. So the rumors that he had a mole surgically implanted were true. Al fought temptation and got down to business. It's actually very bad, Senator. We're facing a problem the likes of which we've never seen, and unless we act immediately, the consequences will be dire. Al gave them the basics. That's one fantastic story, Admiral Calavici, McBride said. She was the only one who didn't look mystified as the details were given. But I, for one, feel that leaping another person is out of the question. There are too many risks. Senator McBride is right, Turner said, smoothing his white goatee to a point. It was just his luck, Al thought, to be strapped to senators with egos bigger than most rock stars. But at least Weitzman had chosen a former president to model himself after. Turner could have been Colonel Sanders' evil twin. You're basing your conclusions, sir, his drawl elongated the word to sir, on information that is coming from a dubious source at best. I would hardly call the world's most advanced computer system dubious, Senator, Al replied, especially not where she can hear you, foghorn. But the fact remains, something must be done. And if it comes down to sending someone back to stop it, the risk will be on my shoulders. I'm the only one who could do it. Your dedication is commendable, Admiral Diliberto said. No bowler or top hat here. Diliberto was perhaps the sharpest and most laid-back senator Al had ever met. Ego didn't enter into his equations. Only results did. Of course, that in itself was a two-edged sword. But I think there's one possibility that you're not voicing, and I doubt you've overlooked it. Frankly, the risks you would be taking are a secondary concern in this case. The real question lies with the person you displace. Project Quantum Leap has already turned from an experiment of observation to one that's invasive to private citizens, good deeds or not. I, for one, can't sanction tearing more people out of their lives so you can clean up your mistakes. I think I speak for all of us when I say that. I understand your concern, Senator, Al said, feeling the sting of that second edge. But the leap would be a one-time event targeted to a specific You can guarantee that, Admiral? Turner accentuated his words with the crook of his cane. Time to face facts. If you can't retrieve Dr. Beckett, what will make your leap any different? You might be stranded in time just as he is. Then who would run the project? They were worried about who would run the project? Were they blind? Senators, I'm confident that we can work out all of those details on this end. We can't let them distract us from the real issue. Dr. Beckett's life is at stake, and we have to do everything in our power to prevent his death. It's this committee that decides the extent of your power, Admiral, Weitzman said. Just remember that. And we all acknowledge that it would be a great tragedy to lose such a brilliant man as Dr. Beckett. Do anything you can to save him, but heed my words well. Under no circumstances are you to leap yourself. Let's make it official, folks. Senator Diliberto, agreed. Senator Turner, agreed. Senator Logan, agreed. Logan? Al focused on the corner of the screen where McBride had been. A blonde man stared back at him. Where the hell had this big-headed Ken doll come from? It's starting already. How much time do we have left? Al couldn't waste any more of it on these nozzles. They were bringing a literal meaning to the phrase. Death by committee. I understand, Senators. Calavici out. He severed the connection and took a deep breath. To hell with etiquette. What else had already changed? Reality could be flickering back and forth like a bad light bulb without any of them even realizing it. How long before the new reality stayed put? He jumped into his pants and ran to the control room. What's the prognosis, Gushy? Not good, Admiral. It could be weeks before we even come up with a test program and weeks more before we work the bugs out. The numbers just won't crunch. Forget about it then. There was no time left. To hell with the committee. Court-martial was a small price to pay. Juice up the accelerator chamber. Tina, get me a Fermi suit.
Dun, dun, dun.
Wow.
That's a good place.
Oh,
That's a good
so
place
good.
to leave it, right?
Yeah.
So good.
I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Yeah, I wish I could read aloud a little bit. I wish I was Damon.
Well, thanks.
Damon's good. I wasn't having a good. I like had a flashback back to like second grade where everybody was watching me and I was reading and I got frustrated and I'm flustered. But Damon got this and Chris got this.
Yeah.
I gotta breathe and just take it easy. So that's where we'll leave it. It's a good place to leave it. Some funny things there. The parole officer Martinek that's the friend of my that's the name of my friend Andy, who I just saw. He lives in Chicago too now.
Oh.
Logan is my best friend Eric, and he's a big-headed Ken doll, blonde.
Wow.
Yeah, so it was funny to put his name in there.
I need to watch the Eric and Christopher podcast. I'm
Right.
just saying.
I'm actually going to see him next week at the opera. He lives upstate now. McBride, of course, we all know Diane McBride.
Yeah.
From Honeymoon Express.
She's a pretty
Diliberto is the last name of Uncle Carl, whose idea kind of inspired this book.
Yes, thank you, Uncle
Yeah.
Carl.
So just some inside baseball.
What
there.
was that Italian word in there and what did it mean?
Stunad.
Nod.
Stupid. Stunad.
Okay.
Stunad.
I need a Italian
Dope.
English dictionary. I don't have it.
You dope. Yeah. So,
Thomas do nod because I didn't know what it meant.
Stunad. Yeah, pretty much.
Okay.
So yeah, there was a little too much. Now that I go, this is one of the things that Ginger wanted me to cut. I think it was the Dave Clark 5 thing, and I insisted that I leave it. And she was right. I should have taken it out. And
Hey, that was kind of funny though.
yeah, and the thing is, like, the only thing I can think of, because I love that song, and that's a very light, sparkly song. But you listen to a lot of Dave Clark 5 stuff, and it can be pretty rocking. So I do them a disservice, is what I'm saying.
I did have a question about that. About dealing with like the editors and people in charge, because it is a TV tie-in. So was there like a limit on expletives, or did they say tone it down, or were they nothing ever said about it? 'Cause it's a
Honestly, I think I only use it once or twice.
book. Mhm.
So they were okay with it. They didn't. I guess in the moment, I feel like it's not gratuitous.
Yeah, it's only a couple
So
of times.
it's only a
I
couple
was
of
just wondering
times,
if
and I
they
feel
gave
like
you a limit or something.
right.
Like PG-13 movies only can say it
Yeah,
once.
no, nothing like that. I think that if it's germane to the character moment, I think they're okay with it. It's not just cursing to curse, but you
Mhm.
know, it's funny because I never said this. I never even made this connection. Basically, I've made Anne-Marie she's a sociopath. Like when she closes her eyes, the world stops. She's the only thing that really makes any sense to her, you know,
Mhm.
to her version of reality. So I've known people like that. Actually, I know one right now, and I'm convinced like he just thinks when he goes to sleep, everything gets put on hold.
I'm right here, Chris.
It's funny because this was way back a few years ago, and I wanted to save this guy, a friend of a friend. When Trump lost the election in 2020, you know, one of the truthers, so to speak, said to me, I said, "What makes you think he lost the election?" He said, "I don't know. When I went to bed, he was winning. I woke up and he lost." And I said to him, "And what? The world stopped because you went to sleep? You realize that, you know, things happen when you're not awake, right?" But, you know, it's just the stupidest justification. Anyway,
That's why you don't go to sleep. I stayed up till 5:30 a.m. that night.
yeah. So now that we've had like Samantha as a character more
Mhm.
and more in this, and she's going to figure in more. The woman on the cover is supposed to be Sammy Joe. Apparently,
Yeah, right.
yeah. Let me give you here. I'm just going to grab something. I'll show you.
Yeah. The one with the gun or the one with the prominent face?
Yeah, her.
Okay.
I always thought it was her.
Okay.
It's
I
her.
always tried to
So
figure out
if
if
you
she looked
guys,
like.
you might remember that Loch Ness Leap had Sammy Joe as a character as well.
Yeah.
So an artist
Mhm.
made a picture of her on one, and when she was character in mine, Ginger said just make that character older.
Ah,
So,
okay.
Okay.
but
Okay.
I don't. They made her look like a freaking school marm. Like I can't stand that. I do love the fact that they put Anne-Marie into like a cat suit, like she's a Bond villain.
Yes,
Yeah.
it definitely has a very Bond look to it.
Yeah. So
Did the artist do some James Bond stuff too?
I have no idea. I have no idea. I just that's scene accurate. Sam was wearing a tuxedo in that scene. That scene's yet to come. Spoilers.
Oh, you read ahead, Chris. Yeah,
I was reading ahead.
School Marm, Sammy Joe. I like it. It reminds me of It's a Wonderful Life, alternate timeline, Donna Reed.
Thank you. Yeah, she does look like Donna Reed in this
Yeah.
picture.
So
Yeah.
I mean, you can't go wrong with Donna Reed.
Yeah,
So,
I always
but it's
wondered if
Sammy
she
Joe,
was-
definitely.
I always wondered if you're supposed to look like Melora Hardin, but I don't know.
Yeah.
Not really here, but
Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah. Well, that's in my book. That's what I intimate in when Al first saw her. He wanted to say Abigail because
Mm.
she looked so much like Abigail. Because
Mhm.
you know who was. I always want to say that Sammy Joe was played by Scarlett Palmer's, but it wasn't Naomi Wildman. I always thought it was Naomi Wildman, but it
Naomi
wasn't.
Wildman. Yay.
Yeah.
Voyager.
I forget who played Sammy Joe as a child, but they
Uh,
use
Kimberly Cullum.
Kimberly Cullum, who
Oh,
also
there you
played
go.
Abigail as a
Ooh,
child.
Wildman
So
would've
you got to
been
figure
dope.
if she grew up to be
Mhm.
if she grew up to be even Laura Hardin, so would Sammy Joe.
Mhm.
Right?
Very
So-
cool. I think
Mhm.
that was a success. Great job, guys. And thank you,
Yeah.
everybody who donated and everyone that will donate throughout the week. And next week, we'll be doing this on Friday, most likely, because there's an opera in town.
Gotta
Right.
do it. Gotta go.
Got to go. Got season tickets. Okay. So the QR code is on the screen. Use your phone to get you to the link quick, or Google Matt Dale GoFundMe,
No spaces.
all one word, right? And
No spaces during Matt Dale.
on the relayed space, yeah, during Matt Dale. On the replay, the link should be below, and just give what you can. And so far, everybody's been so generous, and so I'm so thankful. Thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you everybody who's watching. Thank you everybody who's following along with this, and thank you for contributing to Matt's family and helping keep his memory alive. Yep,
Mhm.
there's the book.
Got mine back there.
Yep, I got mine.
Laser
right here.
beams on it.
And that one.
All right, very cool.
Yeah,
So I think that's good for tonight. And check out our other content. And Chris, wait, we'll start with Damon. Damon, once again, where can people find you?
YouTube.com at Fandom Entanglement.
Cool.
And yeah, and the links should all be there for also we have, every time we put up a new episode, I have like the links for like the Facebook group and everything too, and where you can contact us, fandom.entanglement@gmail.com.
Cool. And Chris, if people want to see more of us,
Mhm.
where can they go?
They can go to youtube.com/@Trexploration. That is our Star Trek show, which we do as a live stream once or twice a week on the YouTubes. And now we're on Twitch, I believe. And I think we do it on Riverside as well, like we're doing this tonight. You can find us also on our Patreon site. It's patreon.com/Trexploration. And there you can join our community of intrepid Trexplorers as we go through currently the last season of Lower Decks with the occasional episode of TNG thrown in. I think we're up to too short a season. We've been threatening to do too short a season for too long a time. I think
Too long a time.
we need to get on the ball with that. Get on the stick.
I actually did watch the episode, I think last night, was it? When we were supposed to go, maybe one of the times. Yeah, so a couple more times I'll watch it. Anyway.
It's funny though. One last thing, if we talk about this, I know that this is the part of the book where the guy says the name that's the name of the book, right?
Yeah.
Kept on saying foreknowledge.
Did you see us? We were like, we were doing the Leonardo DiCaprio thing.
Frank.
All right.
He said the thing. He said the thing.
You said the thing, but foreknowledge for me was always just a placeholder title. I never liked it. I just did it because it kind of crystallized some of the main focus of the plot. And Ginger said, "No, I think that's a great title." It's like, really? Yeah. I was like, all right. I guess it's going to be called foreknowledge.
You don't hear it a lot very often. I don't know of another title of anything that's got that in there.
It was my first time hearing that word.
And spell check never recognizes it, so I always have to get my book out to make sure I'm spelling it right.
Extra E, extra D.
Yeah, the E is where I kept dropping the E, but now I got it. Took
Cool.
me a while. All right, so meanwhile, so thank you everyone for joining us tonight for our Month of Matt Part 2, the live reading of the second quarter of the good book Foreknowledge by Christopher DeFilippis. And thank you, Damon, for joining us. Thank you, Hayden, for joining us. Thank you, Dave, for joining us. Thank you for everyone who was in the chat who joined us and
behind the scenes. Yep.
Yes, behind the scenes, helping us out. We appreciate it. Thank you, Stacy, for helping us as well. And we got a whole bunch of stuff. So remember that link is still open all week long. So go there, get what you can, and share it so other people can. And we appreciate it. And we will see you next time. So for the Quantum Leap Podcast, I'm Albie.
I'm Chris.
And I'm Damon.
And we'll see you next time.
Bye, everyone.
Bye. And we need like 30 seconds for our credits, a little behind the scenes. I say, I love you very much. Beautiful. And I'm talking about this lady right here.
I'm talking about this guy right here.
I want her to know in every 200 of my episodes we put up that I love her. Oh, yeah. The good book. And Foreknowledge. And Serenity is on page 100.
100.
How did you know?
I had foreknowledge.
Also, when I read books, I don't break the bindings either. So
oh man, I was like cracking mine all the way flat because my lights here and stuff.
I'm a little anal like that too. So
all right. Grogu wanted to say hi, Chris. He's got his Back to the Future outfit.
Hi, Grogu.
We know we changed your mind about the musical.
Yep. That's not weird at all.
All right. For the live stream, thank you guys, everyone that was there for us tonight. We really appreciate it. And share, let people know. And thank you so much. And we'll see you next Friday.
That you will.
Oh, Grogu, don't say that. He knows the bad words in sign language. Okay. Bye.
Bye-bye.
All right. We're not live anymore. Thank you, guys.
Okay.
That was great.
Cool.
That was great.
Yeah.
You also spoke so well.
They're good, right?